Welcome to r/Am I the Jerk, where a wild Karen steals her neighbor's package. My neighbor stole my package and threatened to call the cops on me when I asked her about it. A few days ago, I realized that I hadn't received a package I was expecting. I checked the tracking information and saw that it had been delivered a week ago to the person with my apartment number in the other building in my complex. So I went over to the other building at around 6 p.m. and ensured I was at the right place using the photo taken by the delivery person, and I knocked on the door. No answer. That's fine, I figured. They must be out, so I decided to come back the next day. The next day, there's still no answer. Then on the third day, I can hear the television inside the apartment. Aha! So I knock on the door and nothing. No response. I wait a few minutes, then knock on the door again. I figure maybe they were in the middle of something or not appropriately dressed to answer the door. But still no answer. I wait a few minutes more and I knock again. This goes on for maybe 10 minutes or so. Admittedly, at this point, I was already peeved from being completely ignored and also having had to spend several days on this. So about the fourth or fifth time knocking on the door, I suddenly hear a woman screaming at me from inside. "If you touch my door again, I'm calling 911. I try to explain to her that I had a package delivered to her apartment, to which she screamed, "I never got your package. Now leave or I'm calling the police." I told her I had a photo of the package delivered at her door. She paused, then went back to screaming that I was scaring her and that she was calling the police. I told her, fine, go ahead, tell them a neighbor is knocking on her door looking for a package and see what 911 has to say about this. I left and went to the office and explained the situation. The office emailed her along with my photo of the package, at which point she said she did get the package but had her boyfriend place it in the mailroom right outside their elevator. This is not where packages go, as it's unsecured. There's a package room maybe 50 feet away that he could have delivered it to instead or dropped it off with the office about 75 feet away. Unsurprisingly, my package was gone by this point, having either been stolen or discarded. So my question is, am I the jerk for knocking and expecting an answer? I wouldn't necessarily expect her to open the door, but at least say hello and ask me why I was knocking. I thought about leaving a note, but I have some wrist pain that makes writing difficult and I don't own a printer. Should I have given up after the first or second knock? Did I do something wrong by expecting a reply when I could hear someone watching TV? She was avoiding you because she stole your package. She only came up with the mailroom story after the leasing office contacted her. Knocking on doors is normal, and once upon a time, it was not considered such a contemptible offense. Not the jerk. If I'm not expecting someone, I don't answer the door. Everyone who knows me knows they need to call or text first. Otherwise, it's almost always some kind of door-to-door sales, which I hate. If I get a package from a neighbor though, I walk it over and leave it on their porch. I think she went overboard screaming at you, but I wouldn't have gone back after the second time personally. I would have just contacted whoever you bought it from. You're the jerk. No one is obligated to answer their door at your convenience. Knocking for 10 minutes straight, you're a jerk. Your issue is with the package delivery service. Leave that apartment alone. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his neighbor? Please let us know. I'm sure it's not easy delivering packages, but I can't tell you how many times they've taken my packages to the wrong place. Am I the jerk for telling my father to get over the vase that my son broke? When I was a teenager, my father bought a large glass vase, which he filled with wine corks. For years, it stayed on top of a small table in the living room. My family visits him monthly for lunch. Last October, my son was running around my father's living room and accidentally knocked the table over, which caused the vase to fall down and break. I immediately apologized and offered to buy him a new vase. My husband and I also cleaned everything up. My father declined my offer to replace it. At the time, he said he understood it was an accident and was just glad my son hadn't gotten hurt. He was 2 years old at the time, and there was a lot of glass on the floor. During the next couple of months, I apologized and offered to pay for a new vase multiple times. My father continued to say it was fine. However, earlier this year, my father started talking about how much he loved that cork vase and how expensive it had been back when he bought it. As the following months went by, his complaints began to escalate. He'd make comments about the fact that my son broke the vase almost every time we came over. Occasionally, he'd also joke that we should plan our visits with longer notice so that he could hide his valuables from my kid. Last week, he threw a party at his place, which we attended. A friend of his who hadn't visited in a while noticed the vase was gone and asked about it, to which my father replied that my little jerk had broken it and I hadn't replaced it. My husband was nearby and heard it. After the party, I confronted my father and we fought about it. He said that he had the right to complain about the fact that my son had damaged his property. I told him that while he had the right to be upset, the fact that he declined my offer to buy him a new vase does not entitle him to complain about me not doing it. He can either retract his forgiveness and work something out with me, or get over the vase and stop blaming my toddler for the accident. I won't have him calling my son names over this. My father is still insisting that I'm in the wrong here. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The solution would be to buy him a vase for Father's Day, his birthday, Christmas, every holiday. Buy him a vase in perpetuity. Make him so plentiful with vases that he wishes he never sees another one again. Problem solved. Not the jerk. Your son was a toddler doing toddler things. Your dad should have toddler-proofed the house. You offered to buy a new one for him, but he declined, so he can shut up about it. I always thought collecting and displaying wine corks was bizarre. Hey, look at how much I drink, everyone. Everyone sucks here. I wasn't allowed to run around in other people's houses. I blame the parents and your father for complaining. Also, why wouldn't you just buy a new vase anyways? My dog broke my dad's glass water bottle. It was a special bottle that cost him $100. He said don't worry about it, since he had it on the edge of the couch and all my pup did was walk by. But I literally found the same bottle and shipped it to his house. He was super happy, although he said he didn't need another one. He's wrong for complaining, but you also should have just replaced it. This reminds me of that movie, A Christmas Story, the dad with his lamp that's a leg. My husband isn't manly enough. My husband and I are in our mid-40s, married over 20 years, and we have 3 kids together, all double digits. I do love my husband, but I don't know if I'm physically attracted to him, not because of his looks, but because of how he lives his life. My husband is a good man. He treats me very well and is an amazing father to our kids. Physically, he's tall, broad shoulders, not skinny or athletic, but not overweight. He's a big guy with a big beard, big arms, and big hands. He's built like a linebacker. He can physically intimidate people with just his presence, although he never goes in to intentionally do that. He can control a room and has a very masculine job that he excels at. However, the manliness ends there. This is why I may not be attracted to him anymore, if I ever was. He's not handy. It's not that he doesn't try to fix or do things around the house, but he can't build anything. Anything he does fix never looks or works right. A lot of times we have to hire people to fix things or build things for us. He doesn't drink. He'll go out once in a while and have a couple of beers, but he doesn't drink at home. My husband isn't into any manly stuff. He doesn't hunt or fish or do anything with cars, and he's not big into sports either. He's taken the kids fishing and shooting just so that they have the experience, but he just does it for them. He really doesn't have any hobbies. I begged him to take one up, so he started building Lego sets. He's in his 40s. He loves going to the movies. He likes cooking. I never have to cook when he's home, and he does a lot of the house cleaning. I will give him this. He doesn't play video games or board games, unless it's family time, or do any anime or any of that. He's not controlling. Our love life is okay, but I want him to take charge. I won't say anything about this to him. I wouldn't know where to start. I do love him. It's not that I want him to be a drunk or a macho aggressive jerk, but sometimes I just want a man to take charge and fix things. This is bad, I know. I feel bad saying it. I just needed to say it. Update. I received a lot of hate for my thoughts and feelings. I realized when I wrote them and read comments about them that they come off as mean and cruel. I have no right to feel this way. The problem is that I do feel this way. I don't know how to change it. I thought about it for a few days and finally needed to take action because it was weighing on me so much. I received some messages from people telling me to have a conversation with my husband. I decided to. I thought for a while about what I would say, how I would say it, and tried to think of questions or statements he would have that I thought about responses to. Last night we had the talk. Kids were at work and friends' houses. We were sitting outside enjoying the night. I brought it up, and in short, nothing went as expected, and I'm as confused about my marriage than I ever was. I began telling him that I love him. He's a great father and a great person. However, there were some feelings that I could not shake, and there were some changes from him that I needed. I talked about his hobbies, changing it up a bit, working on our love life, what I wanted out of it. I explained in the most sensitive way that I could about how I feel about his personality and overall measure as a man. I did not use those exact words. I was more gentle. However, in order to move forward with our marriage, I felt I needed to be honest. I did tell him that I wanted honesty from him as well and wanted him to tell me what I could do to be a better wife. I know I can't ask him to change without having some myself. I never expected his reaction. He literally just stared at me, said nothing. Emotionless reaction. No anger, sadness, acceptance, nothing. He just stared. I said everything I wanted to say. I was looking for a response, but I got none. After sitting in silence for a while, waiting for some reaction or words, I just yelled at him to say something. At least tell me what I need to work on. The only thing he said to me last night is, "I knew who you were when I married you. I'm not going to ask you to change anything." That's it. We sat in silence for at least an hour after that. Our oldest then came home from work and he went to talk to him for a while. Not about our conversation, but about how work went and stuff. My husband did not sleep in our bed last night. He slept on the basement couch. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to feel. I do feel better about telling him how I felt, but not as great as I thought. I really do not know how to feel. Maybe that's a sign my marriage is over. I can't feel anything about it. I should be happy I said it, sad he won't talk to me, angry for no response, but I have nothing. I guess I'll give it some time for both of us to process. Update 2. We haven't talked about our conversation. He has talked to me, but not about that, and the talks we do have are short. We've had our kids around all weekend, so I never got the opportunity to sit down with him, and with him sleeping downstairs, I figured to just give him some space. I don't know how to proceed. I have talked with a coworker about this just to get advice since I needed someone in my life to talk to. He advised me to give it a bit of time to let my husband talk to me, but if there's no change offered by him, then it may be time to tell him that we need to separate. I don't want to do that, but it may come to that. I want him to see where I'm coming from, and I want him to tell me what I can do to change. Edit. Okay, I had to edit this post because there have been some comments about my coworker. I had these feelings about my husband before I talked with my coworker. We're not having an affair. We're not doing anything inappropriate. He's giving me some guidance because he's a man, and I figured he could help. Nothing more than that. Edit. I am not having an affair with my coworker. I went to him after having these feelings about my husband. There's no emotional or physical affair going on. He's not pushing me to do anything. I literally have no other friends or family in this area, or I would have gone to them. Also, these are my feelings about my husband. I've tried very hard not to feel this way, but I can't stop. I don't know how many of the angels and pure people on this app are able to control their feelings so well, but you obviously are better than I am. None of you have ever had feelings you couldn't shake or feel bad about? If you say you have, you're a liar. I posted on my feelings because I'm genuinely confused and scared and don't know what to do. I feel that you guys just bash but provide no answers. There have been some of you that have been helpful sending me DMs, and I thank you for that. The rest of you in the comments, just think before you post. If you don't want to provide sound advice, please just move on. Final update. Okay, I'm done. I'm not going to post on this anymore. What happens between my husband and I will remain between us. This was the stupidest decision posting on here and then continuing to post on here. I'm not cheating on my husband. It's a coworker. We've talked a few times about it. We only have texted a couple of times. We don't talk about feelings for one another, just someone I asked for a little guidance from, and he was nice enough to give it to me. Yes, my husband is a good man. No, I'm not wrong for having the feelings I do. I stand by talking to him about my feelings because this is what people do in a marriage. If my marriage is over because he can't accept what I have to say or change the small things I want him to change, then so be it. But I'm done posting. This sounds like classic boredom. Things are so good, she's looking for things to be annoyed at and projecting the general feeling onto him. Maybe she needs hobbies or more in her life, so she's less focused on nitpicking her husband for no reason. How did Reddit come to the conclusion that OP is cheating with her coworker? Because he's a man and men and women can't have friends of the opposite gender? No, someone in the comments on her post found and linked where OP had commented about wanting to have an affair with her coworker on a different post. Am I the jerk for leaving home after my fiance said I'm not his son's real mom? Met my fiance Kevin, who's 32, 6 years ago when Joe was 2. I wasn't planning on dating a single parent as I felt I was too young to be a parent in any capacity. But I fell in love with Kevin, and when I eventually got to meet Joe, I fell in love with him too. Joe's biological mom was not in the picture at the time. She wanted absolutely nothing to do with Joe. When I met them, she hadn't seen Joe for a year and a half. For the past 6 years, she hasn't been in touch with Joe or Kevin at all. I've helped raise Joe all these years. I see him as my own. I love him as my own. He calls me mom. In every way, except for biologically, he's my son and I'm his mom. In February this year, we even made it legally official with adoption. It was honestly the best moment of my life. In the beginning of summer, Joe's biological mom contacted Kevin and asked if she could see Joe. We discussed it and decided that we would give her a chance. Maybe she needed some time to grow up. Kevin and Joe met her and it went fine. All was good at first. I even met her and she was perfectly nice and lovely. But the last few weeks, something has changed. Joe and Kevin have spent more and more time with her at Kevin's insistence. I have not been there. Joe has started acting out more than he ever has before, and I've been suspecting it's because of his biological mom's influence. I feel like this was confirmed on Tuesday when Joe said he didn't have to listen to me because I'm not his real mom. It hurt a lot, but he's a kid, so I can't be too angry with him. I talked to my fiance about it later, and then I felt like maybe they should cut down a little on the time they're spending with biological mom and have me be there in the future. We got into an argument, and when I repeated what Joe had said, he responded with, "Well, technically, you aren't his real mom." It felt like a punch. I couldn't believe it, and I still can't believe that he said that. I was so hurt that I just left to stay at my parents' place, and I've been staying here ever since. I tried talking to Kevin, and he's apologized over and over again, but I just can't get over that he sees me like that. I've talked to Joe and said that I just need some time away, but that I love him very much. He's so sad, and there's nothing I want more than to hold him, but every time I think about going home and seeing Kevin, knowing what he said, it makes me cry. Am I awful for needing some space? I feel like a terrible mother, but I don't know what to do. Update 9 months later. The night I made this post, I went back home to Kevin and Joe. It was emotional, but I needed to do it. Joe was already asleep, but Kevin was up. He was so apologetic and cried a lot. I told him we needed to talk, but not that night because we were both exhausted. We were going to have a few normal days for Joe's sake and then send him on a sleepover at his grandparents so we could talk. I also told him I needed a mother-son day with Joe. The next day, me and Joe went to the zoo together and spent the day having a blast. I did explain to him, in a kid-friendly way, that his comment had hurt me a lot. He was very sorry and confirmed what I thought, which was that his biological mom had made comments like that. We talked for a long time, for an 8-year-old, and I asked him if he wanted to keep seeing his biological mom, and he gave a shrug and said she had been fun at first, but he didn't like when she told him off and yelled. Didn't love that she was doing that. I won't try to explain the whole conversation, but I think it was a good one. He's such a sweet, sensitive little guy, and nothing makes me prouder than being his mom. Me and Kevin did have a long, emotional conversation the night that Joe went to my parents. Joe's biological mom was, and is, very manipulative. She could be a narcissist. He was not cheating on me with her as many of you had thought. Kevin and her relationship was not good at all, and when it ended, she gave up custody and parental rights to Joe. It was difficult for Kevin, and he struggled a lot as a single father. He admitted he never quite healed properly from her, but didn't really notice it until she came back. She manipulated him again, and it all brought back so much baggage he thought he had left behind. He said he knew there was no excuse for what he said, and he wishes he never said it, but everything was too much and confusing. I said I wasn't ready to forgive him, but I wanted to work with him. I know this will disappoint some of you who wanted me to leave him, but I can't give up on this man who has been so wonderful for years over this. I felt like we deserved a chance at fighting through this together. The next day, Kevin contacted Joe's biological mom and said we needed some boundaries with her. He said he felt she had manipulated him and his emotions, and he couldn't allow her in Joe's life with the way she was acting. We decided that going no contact with her for the time being was best for us and Joe. We talked to Joe about it first. Thing is, she disappeared without an answer to this. Literally nothing. Changed her phone number and everything. I'm not sure what happened, but we do have a plan if she ever decides to come back again. We're a team through and through. We contacted a couple counselor and a family therapist, and we're working with her, and it's been great. We've done it, just me and Kevin, as well as with Joe. Kevin has apologized profusely more times than I can count. Kevin has also been to individual therapy, which he says has been good for him. It's been a pretty intense couple of months with a lot of personal growth for both of us, but I believe we're on the other side now. I have forgiven Kevin and we're moving on, together and better. Also, the reason I decided to update today is I found out that I'm pregnant. I literally have told no one because I want to tell Kevin and Joe first, in a cute way, but haven't figured out how yet. I'll think of something, but life is pretty good right now, so I hope you all have a wonderful day. Be ready for biological mom to come swanning back into the picture when marriage or grandkids are happening, and the same ghosting once things are sufficiently blown up then. What did the husband think was going to happen? What was going to be the best case scenario here? Biological mom and the kid become BFFs? He was in that relationship, suffered her treatment, broke it off, and got full custody, then OP adopted the kid. Oh, my ex that was manipulative is manipulating my son about his mom. It's fine. Another story where the crappy husband wins. He wouldn't have the opportunity to say it twice. I'd have been long gone. You will always wonder what he really thinks about you. The thing is, he's shown you and you don't care. You adopted him. That's your son. I wonder if he was crushing on his ex, trying to cheat on you. But you will never know how far he went, ever. No self-respect. As a man myself, I assure you that his reaction to your concerns shows that he does not respect you as his partner and as an equal. The audacity he had to dismiss your concerns, this man does not love you the way you love him. If you love Joe, then keep being a part of his life. But for your own sake, please find someone who will give you the respect you deserve, because Kevin has shown you who he really is, and that's not someone you should want to be with. Am I the jerk for not inviting my father to my toddler's birthday party? A little background to this story. My father and mother got into a messy divorce and are not on speaking terms. I'm a married adult and we have kids and we own a house. This home is not particularly close to my dad's house. My dad has since remarried, although I did not attend the wedding. Now my son's birthday was coming up and he said he wanted a birthday party. I don't know why, but for some reason I wasn't expecting a 3-year-old to want a birthday party, so maybe I am the jerk. So I quickly invited some of my son's friends and my mother, since she lives closer, and I knew that she could make it on short notice. It was a fun party and my son had a great time. I took pictures and posted them on social media when it was over. Then came the text. I won't post it here since it's rather lengthy, but the gist of it is, "You don't invite me to family gatherings. You disrespected me by not coming to my wedding. Your mother has poisoned you against me. I won't be treated like this for much longer. There will be consequences." I was confused at first. I had just seen him last month at a small family gathering with his side of the family. I tried to explain that I couldn't have him and my mom over at the same time since my mom would just leave, and I didn't need that drama at my son's birthday party. I offered to let him come over and give my son a gift on another day if he wanted to. As for his wedding, I told him I didn't feel comfortable going. It was just weird for me and nothing personal. I told him I didn't appreciate the whole consequences talk. After all, I'm the only child he has left that even speaks to him. On a side note, and I did not say this to my dad, but I'm not even sure what consequences would be. I'm a self-made man at this point in my life. It sounds cruel to say, but I don't really need my parents for anything anymore. I suppose he could write me out of his will, but I've always assumed I wouldn't get anything anyway. I'd be lucky if I didn't inherit his debt at this point. Anyways, to make a long story short, I basically said he has to deal with the fact that he can't be over at the house at the same time as my mom. If he wants that to change, he needs to make things civil with my mom. Until then, he has to accept coming over for separate family gatherings. He took this as me taking sides, and we just went around circles for a long time, with claiming all his previously stated positions. I'm tempted to just do what my siblings have done and cut him out of my life, but at the same time, I want him to be able to have some kind of relationship with his grandkids. So, am I the jerk for having 2 birthday parties for my son just to appease a parent that doesn't even appreciate the extra effort? I don't think I can keep doing this forever. I think my kids don't care now, but I think they would resent this as they get older. Not the jerk, but let me ask, did your father contact your kid to wish him a happy birthday? Did you receive a gift for him in the mail? Or did you get a call saying, "Hey, I know you have a birthday coming up. Do you have any plans?" It appears your father showed absolutely no interest in your kid's birthday until you posted about it. Now he wants to act hurt that he wasn't included. As last minute as your party was, if he cared at all, there should have been some kind of effort from him before that point. You have a 3-year-old, so you know what temper tantrums look like, and you know that rewarding tantrums just gives you more tantrums. Don't try to appease someone who is not being reasonable. Parent your kid in the way that makes sense for you and your family, and issue invitations you want to issue. Let him impose consequences if he chooses. I suspect they will make very little difference in your life, but giving into his threats is going to set you up for a long, hard road. Everyone sucks here. As for your mom, why can't she be an adult and be in the same room as your father for their grandkid's birthday? If you're going to exclude someone and don't want blowback, don't post about it on social media. And your dad, he needs to express his understandable hurt without bringing in potential consequences. I kicked out my Karen mom after she kicked out my boyfriend. I'm female, 26, and my mom and stepdad got divorced 6 months ago. She doesn't work and couldn't afford rent, so we, the family, agreed to take turns in letting her stay with us. I own an apartment and live alone, and have plans to move my boyfriend of 6 months later. Mom moved in with me a month ago. She can be very conservative. She started acting bossy and had an attitude, especially towards my boyfriend. Examples: She took the copy of the key to the apartment that I gave to my boyfriend, saying we haven't been together long enough to trust him with my key, and gave scenarios of him coming in to steal when we're out. She left him waiting outside several times for showing up late, which was as late as 7 p.m. She never agrees to let him stay the night and throws tantrums and gets too paranoid when that happens, then complains she couldn't sleep all night knowing that there was a stranger in the apartment. She did other things and set ridiculous rules for my friends, but that's another story. So I was getting fed up after talking to her, telling her I'm not a little girl and that she has to respect that it's my place. Yesterday I wasn't feeling well and was in bed all day. Mom was out all day. She came home and I asked if she was going to cook dinner. I was hungry and had no energy to stand. She said she had already eaten and that I should keep my stomach empty when I'm in pain. I ignored her and texted my boyfriend. He said he was on his way and brought food and pain medication. This was at 6, by the way. He said he needed an hour, so I decided to rest before he arrived. But he arrived early and I was still in bed at the time when Mom opened the door. I woke up to her screaming. I walked out and found her arguing with him at the door, refusing to let him in. She was saying that it was late and that he should leave. I told her to step aside and let him come in, but she pitched a fit, saying there was no way in heck she was going to stay up till the morning because there's a stranger in the apartment. I said, he's not a stranger, he's my boyfriend. She said in her eyes, he's a stranger till he does the logical thing and puts a ring on it. I got mad and said she was acting like a crazy old woman right now. She reminded me she's my mother, but I reminded her it's my place. She turned and said to him, "You can leave the food here and go home. It's getting late. Besides, she's not feeling well, so she's useless to you tonight." My boyfriend walked away, leaving the food and medication. I went off on her and yelled that she was out of line and she needed to pack her things and leave because I don't want her in my place after this stunt. She didn't think I was serious till I pulled her bags and called an Uber. She then started crying and guilting me, then left to go to my brother's place. My brother was fuming, saying I was supposed to host her till the end of August and said Mom didn't do anything and it was disgraceful that I'd do this to her over some guy. He's been mad along with the others at my behavior and told me to check myself, apologize, and offer to take her in. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you let your mom live with you if she was acting like this or not? Please let us know. I'd let her stay in the backyard, put up a little tent or something. Employees' lunches are personal property, and the company is not responsible for lost or stolen personal items. Nobody likes a lunch thief, and I had one of the most aggressive at my office. There were rumors for a few months leading up to the inciting incident of someone going around and taking people's lunches. Just about every day, someone different would complain that their lunch was missing. It had even happened to me once or twice, but I figured, hey, it's a big office. A few people are probably just careless and grab the wrong lunch and are too embarrassed to bring it back, or someone else packs their lunch and they don't know what's in there, so it's not obvious they have the wrong one or whatever. Most people just brought brown bags with their names on it anyways, or identical Rubbermaid Tupperware with a little piece of labeled tape on the side. It was easy enough to mix it up. I had accidentally grabbed a wrong lunch once or twice, but I had noticed before I got it open. I thought I was just more careful, or even just not as busy as some other people in the building. However, other people weren't as forgiving, and a quorum made complaints to HR. They were blown off. Personally, at the time, I thought it was all much ado about nothing. But then it began. My wife enrolled in a French cooking class online, and just about every day I was bringing fancy, gourmet leftovers for lunch. You'd think I was picking up a to-go bag from a Michelin-starred bistro on the way to work each morning. She really threw herself into the coursework. There were no problems for about 2 weeks, maybe 3, until one day my lunch went missing. Considering what delicacies I had to look forward to, I was pretty upset. But I did a once-over around the break room and didn't see anyone eating my lunch, so figured someone grabbed my bag by accident earlier, saw how good things looked, and, realizing it was their lucky day, didn't bring it back to the fridge. I wrote the mysterious stranger off as a jerk, but accepted the loss and looked forward to dinner that night instead. Next day, I write my name on my lunch in extra bold lettering, jam the bag into the back of the fridge, and feel peace of mind. I get there come break time. Nope, it's gone. I was pretty upset, but I figured it was a stroke of bad luck and left it at that. What else could I do? However, third day, out of an abundance of caution, I kept my lunch at my desk. A pain because I had to eat it fairly early in the day to avoid spoilage, but at least I'd know where it was. I got up to take care of some business down the hall, and when I came back, yup, my lunch was gone. Unfortunately, that didn't help me narrow it down much at all, because my desk is centrally located, so everyone's constantly passing by. At that point, there was no possibility of the theft being arbitrary, so I approached HR and filed a complaint. Their response, practically verbatim, was, "Employees' lunches are their personal property, and the company is not responsible for lost or stolen personal items." The following day, my wife packed a cream-based soup that really had to be refrigerated. I was passing by the break room to check on my lunch practically every 5 minutes. Somehow, it still managed to disappear. I was irate at this point and returned to HR and really blew my top. The best they could do was send a memo around about remembering to check the name on your lunch when you remove it from the fridge, but they made it very clear that it was a routine memo and in no way related to my complaints, which were not their jurisdiction, so not an admission of responsibility because my lunch was my own personal problem. The only suitable alternative to packing a lunch available in the building are these wretched shrink-wrapped ham and cheese sandwiches from a vending machine. They've been marinating in the heat for God knows how long, and the bread is as stale as corkboard and the meat is rancid, and there's gluey mayo smushed into the corner. It's a relic of the old office tenants, I'm pretty sure. I vented daily to my wife, but her only idea was to start bringing a regular sandwich and apple again to dissuade the thief and get him to move on to other lunches. So, determined to prevent this low-life jerk from downgrading the quality of my lunch, I hatched an elaborate plan. Then lockdown hit, and I forgot all about this whole saga. I worked remotely for months and months. Then we returned, and after all that happened globally, this was the last thing on my mind. But I got to the break room the first day back, frustrated from having to wear a button-up and tie after months of working in pajamas, sore from my desk chair, and exhausted from small talk, only to find my lunch was gone. This was a particularly sore point because my wife and I divorced between my last lunch work and the present one, so I did not appreciate being reminded of any past threads involving her. I pretty much flew into a blind rage at that point, especially seeing that stupid worthless memo about checking the lunch bag names posted in the break room, feeling so helpless and so hungry and so alone as it was me and my lunch against the world. I stormed out and was determined to return the next day with a plan. So I came in the following day with an empty lunch bag, and I checked closely to be sure no one was watching, and I switched the contents of the HR person's lunch bag into my bag. So now their lunch appeared to be my lunch. They had packed a regular brown bag, so I just discarded that and I left. And I waited. I knew this was a pretty big gamble because it was contingent on the theory that the thief was avoiding me while having lunch, but not wary of anyone else. So, would they eat out in the open if there were no risk of bumping into me? So I made a big show of going around the office, announcing that I was headed out for a meeting and I wouldn't be back until at least 3 p.m. I even went through the trouble of moving my car out of the lot to a space 2 streets over, where I then sat in my car and worked remotely for several hours before sneaking into the building up the back stairway. I then sat in the stairwell just outside the break room where you can hear chatter and can't be seen. And after about 20 to 30 minutes of waiting, I heard it. The sweetest sound I'll ever hear in the office. HR. What the heck, Kyle? That's my lunch. Lunch thief. Nah, it's not your name on the bag. HR. Give me that. I'm assuming grabs the bag and sees my name. HR. Yeah, let's head to my office for a chat. The HR rep later called me in as well and said they were aware of my break room hijinks, but it was obvious that the point still came across loud and clear. They warned me that it was a violation of policy to move another employee's lunch. It took every ounce of self-control for me to keep from retorting, I thought our lunches were our personal property, and the company was not responsible for them being lost or stolen. They informed me that they had located the thief and things would be handled accordingly. But better than whatever write-up they might be able to issue Kyle, his reveal as the lunch thief occurred in front of the whole break room. So word quickly spread as to who had been stealing everyone's lunches earlier last year, and he is now the office pariah. He was in line for a promotion. The promotion is indefinitely off the table. And I also earned brownie points for exposing him, though more than I'm satisfied with are being attributed to HR. At the end of the day though, I didn't do this for the credit, or even the sweet, sweet revenge. I did it to get my lunches back. Have you ever had someone take your lunch? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know. I would have put something special in that lunch. Teach that thief a lesson he won't forget. Am I the jerk for refusing to take my husband's last name? Me, female 26, and my fiance, Jake, male 27, have been together for 5 years. We met in college while he was doing an exchange in my country, Belgium. He's from the US. He loved it here, so he decided to stay, and we are really happy here. I've met his family a few times when we went there to visit them. They've never been to Belgium. Important for later. Now here, women don't take their husband's last name. It is the law. All documents will still be in my maiden name after our wedding. I think it is possible to do all kinds of administrative stuff to change my name, but I don't want to. All the women around me have their maiden name, and my fiance agrees that I should keep my name. On to the main issue. 3 days ago, we were doing a Zoom call with his family, and the topic of the name came up, and they were very surprised to hear that I was not taking his name. I explained very calmly that it is the law here, and that I had the perfect example of my mom, who had a business in her maiden name and only used my father's name when dealing with our school, or things like that, and that I wanted to take the same approach as her. Well, all heck broke loose. His mom started screaming at me, saying that it's not because I came from a country of peasants that I should punish my fiancé, that he was so far away from them because of me, and so on. Jake defended me, and I tried to calm her down, but she turned to her husband while crying that they never came to my country because they know it's not nearly as good as the US, and that I just proved it, and father-in-law said that I was being petty, and that he didn't want to listen to such nonsense. They left the call, and my fiancé comforted me, because I was honestly very shocked by their reaction and their insults. I thought it was over, but they've been sending messages over the past few days. They even got the rest of the family to do it as well, and even my parents said that I should try to keep the peace and offer to check into the administrative procedures to change my name, but I really don't want to. My fiancé is conflicted. He grew up in a town where it was very, very uncommon for a woman not to take her husband's name, and he agrees that it would keep the peace with his family, but he does not want to force me and says that it's my decision. Am I the jerk here? Update. I didn't expect this to blow up at all. Thank you everyone for your input. I stayed up until 3 a.m. last night to read all your comments, and I'm relieved to know that I was in the right. To the people not understanding why I was doubting myself, I was a very confrontational person when I was younger, but after bad stuff happening with close people, I learned to keep my mouth shut. Moreover, his parents never behaved like this with me, and when my parents and my fiancé actually agreed a little with them, so no one was on my side, I started doubting my approach. I realize now that I've become too kind and that I let people walk over me and that I need to call them on their BS more. As for my fiancé, we had a long conversation about this morning. He was very defensive at the beginning, saying that his parents probably didn't mean it and blah blah blah. But after explaining my side of things and showing him the messages they sent, he actually realized that they were completely out of line. He admitted that they never behaved like that with him either, and that he was so surprised by their attitude that he didn't know how to react. I've shown him some of your comments, and he understands now that he has to set clear boundaries because it's the first of many fights if he does not. He promised me that he was going to send them a message today saying that this kind of behavior would not be accepted and that they needed to apologize to me if they wanted to come to our wedding. He apologized profusely, and I want to trust him. We also discussed the topic of name again, and he promised me that he was fully supporting my decision. Concerning kids, we already had a conversation because we both want to be parents, and we agreed to give them his last name. Again, thank you all for your comments. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the in-laws? Please let us know. Nothing's worse than in-laws who try to control things they have no right to control. Entitled mother tries to change my English accent. A little bit of background. I'm from a rural area in Catalonia, Spain. Why is that important? Because my native languages are Catalan and Spanish. But until I was like 18 years old, I barely used Spanish outside of school, so my Spanish accent is, let's say, weird. Now, knowing that, imagine my English accent. It's not that I don't want to do it better, it's just that I can't. But still, I can talk to people and they will pretty much understand me. Now, I used to work as a waiter in a fancy, but pretty much always empty restaurant in my town. We used to have clients from all over, and I was the only one who could speak enough English, so I'd be the one taking their orders. I was quite happy to do that because I got to practice, and most of the people were great. I had 10 German customers tip me like €5 each, and was told to keep it for myself. Boss agreed when I told him, because they were happy with me. And the best thing, they waited for my shift to end and asked me if I wanted to join them. They were awesome. Conversation probably aren't 100% accurate, but that's more or less how I remember them. But one day, entitled mom shows up with her son. I guess he was around 16 years old or so. She was the stereotypical American woman. Her way to talk, her gestures, I thought it was hilarious. Since the beginning, when she heard me talk, she put on a weird face. But anyway, I tried my best. Then, after a while of talking to them, she said, "We've got entitled mom, we've got the nice boy, and me." Entitled mom. "Excuse me, could you speak better English? Your English is weirding my son out." Nice boy. "Mom, please." Looks at me. "I'm sorry, you're not." Looks at her. "Let him do his job." Me. "I'm sorry, ma'am, that's my English. I would need to practice a lot so I could change my accent." Entitled mom. "But you have to know better so you can talk to us." Me. "Excuse me? I'm sorry I don't have a better accent, but I'm trying my best." And the moment everyone was waiting for. "Let me speak to your manager." So I did, knowing this poor dude wouldn't understand half of what she said. Now we've got my boss. "Boss, can I help you?" "Your employee won't speak better English to us." Boss looks at me confused, and I translated for him. Entitled mom. "What are you doing? What are you telling him?" Boss. "I can't help you, sorry. He has the best English. I leave you with him. Sorry." Then he told me that if she continued like this, to let her write a complaint and let her leave. Then he goes back to the kitchen. Entitled mom. "Where is he going? Why is he leaving? What did you tell him? You just needed to speak better English and this wouldn't have happened." Me. "Lady, I told you, I can't speak better English." Entitled mom. "I demand you speak better English." Me. Really ticked off. "Lady, I told you, I can't speak better English. And now I need you to leave." Nice boy laughed a little bit, and then entitled mom grabbed her things and her son, and she left yelling not very nice things, that she wasn't paying, that she would sue us and blah blah blah. Nothing ever happened. That was it. Boss never cared about what happened. We got to eat what we didn't serve them, and we had an anecdote to tell the other waiters. As a fun fact, something similar happened a couple days after with a French couple who wanted us to speak French when anyone in the restaurant spoke French, and they didn't even know a single word in English. They ended up leaving a bad review in the Spanish page, in French. Thank you for reading. I'm sure a lot of you have similar stories that I would love to know. Entitled mom tries to steal my service dog. So this just happened today, so I'm shaken up from it. I have a wonderful service dog named Frankie. She helps me with my anxiety and PTSD so that I can go into stores and shop. I have an ID for her that shows she belongs to me. So I'm shopping today looking for some clothes when I see this boy, entitled kid, running under the clothing racks and through the aisle. This gives me anxiety, and Frankie alerts me by jumping on my leg. I reward her and we move on. Entitled kid runs right in front of us and spots Frankie. Entitled kid. "Puppy!" He goes to pet Frankie, and I step in between him, putting my hand to block him. Me. "I'm sorry, sir. You can't pet her. She's working, see?" I motion to Frankie's vest that clearly states service dog, do not pet. Entitled kid starts crying and runs under the clothing racks. I try to calm myself down and I continue shopping. I then hear stomping feet coming into the aisle I'm in, and I turn around to see the mom, entitled mom, coming towards me, entitled kid in tow. Karen. "How dare you tell my little angel that he can't pet your dog? Let my son pet your dog now." Me. "I'm sorry, ma'am. My dog is working right now, and your son can't pet her." "I don't care." Entitled mom then comes up to me and grabs Frankie's leash from me. Frankie has been trained to follow a stranger in case of medical emergencies, so she just goes with the woman. Me. AC! This is an emergency call for Frankie to come right to my side. Frankie slips her harness and runs to me. I pick Frankie up, crying now. Entitled mom. "How dare you! I'm going to call the police saying you stole that dog from me." Entitled mom then blocks me from leaving and calls the police. The police arrive and entitled mom starts saying that Frankie is her service dog and I stole her. I start having a panic attack and Frankie alerts me and lays on my chest to calm me down. The officer comes over and helps me calm down. When I come out of the panic attack, I explain what happened and showed the ID I have for Frankie and my ID to prove it's me. Entitled mom throws Frankie's harness and starts running away. The officer grabs her and arrests her for pet theft, assault on an officer, and verbal harassment. Frankie is okay, and I'm okay as well. I took my emergency medication, and I'm doing better now. Thank you for reading. Please treat service animals like medical equipment and do not try to pet them. Don't walk on your property? You got it. This one goes back to the previous neighborhood our family lived in. It was a really nice, quiet, horseshoe-shaped street, but it had no sidewalks. When my wife and I would walk the dogs and our kids, we would have to walk in the street. This was not a problem unless a car came, and we would have the kids step aside into the grass to stay out of the street while the car passed. The neighborhood was built in the 80s, and many residents are original owners. Mostly nice, but of course we have some nasty humanoids among them. One neighbor in particular seems to always have to say something mean when we go by. She's a deacon at the church my family goes to, and is the type to be religious for face value only. One day in particular, she yelled at us for allowing our kids to step in her grass while avoiding a car in the road. I told her that they were just stepping aside until the car passed. She got overly angry and started spraying a hose at us and screaming like a banshee. We hurried the kids away and told them that they did nothing wrong, and from now on, we will walk on the other side of the street. About 2 weeks later, her and her husband got a new shed installed at their house and had to have the property surveyed for it. As I drove by, I noticed something. The front of the property boundary was about 10 feet back from the road. The houses on their side of the street are all a little further back. I had a friend who does surveying come out and do our property, and sure enough, our boundary was about 3 feet from the road. We did some digging through the archives at City Hall and found that the neighborhood was permitted and designed to have a sidewalk that ran the length of the horseshoe on her side of the street. The 10-foot right-of-way was designed to have curbing, grass, and then a sidewalk. So I did what any sane person would do in this situation, and I contacted the township to have a sidewalk put in. The township notified all residents of the request and held an open hearing for it during a township meeting. Most of the neighbors showed up in support of it. Most didn't care, but that nasty lady showed up to protest it and raise all heck. A month later, they began excavating for the sidewalk, and when they got to her house, she had planted a big landscape piece with flowers and shrubs and a tree right in the way. The township told her to remove it. She didn't. They fined her and removed it themselves. The best part of this story is that 2 weeks after the sidewalk was finished and in, we listed our house and moved to another neighborhood. She still makes nasty remarks to my mother at church, and we drive by her house while visiting our old neighbors every now and then. Timesheets are due at 5 p.m. I work as a remote system engineer, and I work with project managers, PMs. We have these timesheets that have a deadline of Friday at 5 p.m. And although they have a Friday deadline, the PMs don't ever start working on them until next week. Pretty pointless, but I submit mine a little early around 4 p.m. And the project manager whom I worked with really liked it, as she could fill them out and get them done. So she was the only one who actually did the billing on Friday right before she left for 5. So I made her life pretty easy. One day I had my son's soccer game get bumped up as they were playing 2 games due to rescheduling from hurricanes. So I gave my PM a heads up as I was pretty booked solid and I wouldn't have time to work on the timesheets. I told her after I got back home I would put them in later tonight. She was like, "Oh, that's perfectly okay, sweetie." Cringe. I submitted the timesheet around 7, thinking all is good. I get a call from my boss, whom I will say is usually quite chill. He was telling me that the PM complained to her boss and he is hearing it. He was very nice, but told me that I must follow the company policy of timesheets being in by 5. That way, he didn't have to hear about this complaining, and I'm good. So, remember how I said I submitted them early? That courtesy has expired. The following week, I get a ping from my PM at 4:30. She is asking if I submitted my timesheet yet, as she's looking to leave a little early. I told her I did not, and I'm following the policy of getting the timesheets in by 5 p.m. What I did was I had my timesheet saved as a draft, but wouldn't actually finalize it until 4:59. I even pinged her and told her timesheet is all in. So she had to stay later as she was always insistent on doing billing on Friday. 1 week later, she asked me, pretty please, if I could fill out my timesheet a little earlier, as she was going on PTO and was leaving early on Saturday. I'm thinking, not my problem. But I said in my happiest voice, I'll try my best. I submitted it at 4:57. Eventually, she complained to her boss. My boss talked to me and mentioned it. However, my boss said, he is technically submitting his timesheets on time, and he chewed out the PM's boss. I didn't hear it, but he told me all about it. The PM eventually got fired, as she was a pretty bad PM. And as I do my timesheet on a Friday, this memory pops up from time to time. Entitled Dad wants my granny-in-law's wheelchair. So, several months ago, my granny-in-law was in an accident. This was not her fault. This resulted in both her fake leg and her real leg getting broken, among other injuries. Granny is just full of rage. She's 80 years of rage, people. She had fought hard for decades over wanting to be independent and never be put in a home or become someone's burden. She wanted to live in her own home, take care of herself, and die in her own bed. Sadly, the accident made that impossible now. She'll never be able to walk under her own power again, and she's hurting herself using a walker or whatever you called those wheeled things. She wants to live at home. However, she knew she would need someone there constantly and hired a day nurse and a night nurse to come take care of her. She refuses to move into any home, relatives or otherwise. Well, in an effort to get her out of the house, my wifey and I would take her out. Yes, we were being very careful about where we were taking her and going all out on masks and antibacterial everything. We tried to take her places that weren't too crowded, but also wheelchair accessible. Well, a mall that was about an hour out of town had reopened. It's a sad, sad place because many of the stores were closed and possibly would never get any new business. It was a dying building, but the food court still had excellent food. We went there today. The kids were off playing with some friends, so it was just me, wifey, my granny, and myself, taking laps around the mall, taking turns on who pushes Granny. Now, Granny was wearing a long skirt, but didn't have her fake leg on. You couldn't really see that she had one leg unless you were looking very closely. So I can kind of understand why this entitled dad thought my granny had 2 legs. See, we got hungry and went to the food court to get healthy food to eat. We pulled up to a table and started to chow down. Then entitled dad appeared. I don't even need to transcribe this part. It's a dime a dozen story about an entitled parent that wants the wheelchair that someone is currently using. We say no, she says no and cannot walk, and the entitled dad demands it for his son. He was sitting at another table, looking like he was out cold. He was that tired looking. Granny finally had enough and looked at him right in the eye and said, "Young man, this is my chair, which I need to move about. I don't care how tired your kid is. He cannot have it. I would not be able to walk at all." Entitled dad obviously replies, "You may be old, but you don't need it at all. You can walk, you old crone." Granny got red in the face. "Old crone? Looky here, little boy. I may be old, but I can still kick your butt, even if my only leg is in a bad shape." Entitled dad scoffs at her. "I bet you're only faking about having one leg." Granny looked like she was about to yell again, except she just grinned. She turned her chair to him and showed him that she was indeed missing a leg. "Think I'm faking here, kid?" she goes in a snide tone. "Think this is a fake stump?" Entitled dad looked embarrassed and tried to talk. Granny wouldn't let him. She actually lifted up her stump a bit. "Why don't you touch my stump? Come on, it might be a real stump, might be fake. Touch it and see. Touch my stump. If it's a fake stump, the chair is yours." The guy backed off and started for his table. Except Granny started to wheel after him, yelling at him. "Come on, touch my stump. You know you want to. Touch it." Me and wifey were cracking up at this, so I had to be the one to grab her chair and bring her back. The entitled dad picked up his son and carried him out of there quickly. Granny was grumbling about how rude that man was, but she looked so proud of herself. A few people there within hearing range were also laughing, although 2 people looked disgusted at my granny-in-law. Forget them. At least that got some anger out of her system. The situation calmed her down a great deal and cheered her up. My Karen neighbor demands a cash gift for her son's graduation. Long story short, the day before yesterday, my neighbor was calling me asking me to bake 12 dozen cookies for their son's graduation celebration, which at the time of the call was in about 20 hours. She said the cake they ordered had somehow become lost in the order system and wouldn't be ready in time, that their son loves my chocolate chip cookies and it would mean the world / save the party. I agreed to help out. I went to the store and quickly bought all of the ingredients, which for that amount of cookies came close to $300. I managed to get them all baked, arranged on trays, and set up at the party without issues until the end of the party. Mom walks up and thanks me for helping out, and then asks me if I forgot to include a check in the graduation card. I calmly told her that the last-minute baking marathon was my gift and said I was glad it all worked out. Mom said she appreciated my hard work, but that her son couldn't buy books for college with cookies, and that I should at least hand him some cash before I left. I left without doing so, and now the mom has texted me asking me to apologize to her son. Am I the jerk? Update. Thank you for all the upvotes and awards. Wow. I ended up replying to mom that the only apology that was needed was one from her for being so rude about me not giving money as my gift. She did say sorry via text, and it was just that. A single word, sorry. Hope they enjoyed the cookies because that was the last taste they'll be getting of those. And for those asking why the cost of ingredients was so high, I did buy all new ingredients, flour, sugar, butter, etc., because I wasn't comfortable using up eggs that had been sitting in my fridge for a week. Also, I make these cookies a little larger than normal size, so therefore more ingredients. Yes, I chose to do them bigger, but I figured it was for a special occasion, so what the heck? Lesson learned. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you go ahead and give their son some money or not? Please let us know. Rule number 1, never bake cookies for Karen. Manager tells me I need to know which rules to follow. When I was in grad school, about 15 years ago, I was working nights and weekends in a convenience store. It also happened to be the first time the fuel prices shot up to $4 plus per gallon in America. Because of this, there were quite a few people who pumped gas and drove off, prompting our company to institute a pay before pumping policy. The company was a small regional chain of gas stations / convenience stores in a largely rural area. They were concerned about any loss, so much so that in the company newsletter, they announced firing someone for regular theft from the store. The theft in question was when an employee refilled her fountain drink while on duty. Another example was that we were required to do money drops anytime we had more than $200 in the cash register. Another employee was fired because she was robbed and hadn't done a money drop. There was approximately $205 in the register at the time. So when this new policy came out, I wasn't about to risk my job over someone filling up and driving off with a tank full of gas on my watch. My manager was really good about working around my needs for class, research, etc. while working on my degree. So I put up with this and wanted to keep my job. One night I'm working and someone pulls up to get gas. The machine beeps, letting me know someone is trying to fuel up before paying. I won't pre-authorize because policy. Customer comes in and demands I let him fill up before paying. I explain the policy and he lights into me with perhaps every word he knows. I'd like to say I was professional, but I returned his hospitality. The next day when I show up for work, my manager is waiting for me, clearly unhappy. He is a regular customer, and we want to keep them happy. I explained to her that regular customer or not, I wasn't willing to risk my job over a drive-off when people are getting fired for losing such little sums of money. Manager states, I see what you're doing, but you have to learn which rules to follow. Now, she's been with the company for about 15 years. She could get some leeway. I'd been there less than a year. I had no leeway. So I asked her, Please put in writing which rules I am expected to follow and which rules I am not. Or put in writing which customers are exceptions to policy and which ones are not. Until then, I'm following all of the company's policies. I'm not surprised that she wouldn't put that in writing. Fast forward about a week. I'm working solo on a Sunday afternoon when someone I've never seen before comes in and yells at me for not pre-authorizing his pump. I explained the company policy and that he would have to prepay just like everyone else. Customer claimed he was with corporate and that he should be allowed an exception. I informed him that if he really was from corporate, he'd know about this policy and would expect me to follow it. I even pointed to the policy statement in the window for him to read. The customer yelled at me and stormed off before I could reply. Turns out, this stranger was from corporate and even the VP of the company. He called to complain to my manager about my refusal to let him pump first. She repeated my arguments as to why I refused to risk my job and that he should be glad to know they have such loyal employees. VP said that policy was meant for regular customers and not for employees. She replied, "Please put into writing which rules we are expected to follow and which ones we are not." Do you ever bend the rules at your job a little bit or not? Please let us know. I'd love to bend the rules if I had a job. Sadly, I don't, and I just have to sit here and listen to you all day. Am I the jerk for not inviting a child-free friend to my baby shower? This is really dividing up my friend group, so I need all the help I can get. Sorry about any typos. I, 24 female, am 6 months pregnant. My friend decided to throw a baby shower and she asked me to get her a guest list. I invited most of my friends except Anna, who's 25, who is child-free. Anna and I have known each other since college. She's always known she doesn't want kids, and I don't have any problem with that. Everyone's needs and wants are different, and I respect that. But Anna tends to bash having kids a lot. She doesn't talk about it always, but it tends to be something she likes to discuss. Not going to lie, I did not find it to be hurtful or wrong before I got pregnant, but even after all of my friends knew about my kid, Anna continued to bash having kids. She didn't outright say it, it was very subtle, like sending articles about how having kids contributes to pollution, etc., or saying things like, "It's a bad world. Why would anyone want to subject an innocent kid to this?" During the first months, I thought she was just concerned, or maybe it was hard to break the habit, but she continued on, despite me telling her it's a bit hurtful. She always apologized though and seemed genuine. Last week we were out having lunch and she said something along the lines of, "People get so boring after being pregnant. No offense though." Because I was talking about something baby related. I barely do that because I know how some people can just go on and on about things like this. But I was talking about it that day because one of the friends there had asked us a question related to it because she and her husband were thinking about having kids themselves. I laughed it off, but it hurt me a lot. So when it came to the baby shower, I decided to not invite her. I was feeling a bit petty, I guess, which is one of the reasons why I may be the jerk. But I also don't want her saying hurtful things. I know I'm a very sensitive person, and this can be annoying, but I can't change what I get hurt about. The baby shower was beautiful, but afterwards, I got a call from Anna, and she was calm but angry, if that makes sense. She said she saw all of the Instagram photos, not from my account, called me selfish, accused me of trying to cut her off from the group for being child-free, and things like that. I just replied about her finding baby things boring, and she hung up. A lot of other friends texted me saying I shouldn't take everything so seriously and should not have made Anna upset, especially since we've been friends for years. So I have to know if I should work on my behavior and apologize, or if I was in the wrong. Am I the jerk? Update. My friends and I have decided that Anna is not trying to understand me at all. She's currently calling me a lot of names online like breeder. So yeah, like a lot of people have suggested, I'm going to end this friendship, and so are the others, because they agree she has crossed a line too. Thank you for your help. I appreciate it so much. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know. Never be friends with someone who disrespects you or your life decisions. They're honestly not worth it, and they will never be. You want me to keep digging? You got it. Since lockdown started, I've been living with my sister and my parents at home. I'm pretty grateful that I get along with my parents and my sister, and things have been pretty smooth sailing given the circumstances over the past year or so. That being said, my dad is pretty my way or the highway with most things. always very controlling when it comes to keeping the house clean and the backyard manicured. He bought a lawnmower, trimmer, and blower this past spring and tidies around the house probably twice a week. I love him, but darn, does he need things to be clean, and he will not waste an opportunity to complain about things that are messy and ask us to do mundane tasks, refill the toilet paper when we have many extra rolls, etc. I'm pretty understanding, and my dad's just a little on the neurotic side, but he's just so uppity about it that it's hard not to get annoyed at. So a couple weeks back, my dad noticed the flower bed in the backyard isn't doing so hot. Or rather, it's doing too hot. The trees above give pretty much normal shade most of the garden, but lets the sun absolutely bake the flower bed. Not much you can do about it, just a small quirk of the backyard landscaping. My dad can't look at that without thinking, this needs to be solved. But instead of planting a sun-loving plant, he decides it's the soil's fault. Somehow, he makes the connection that the soil might have been salted by accident or something, and my dad asks me to dig out the dying flowers, clean out the soil, put in new soil, and replant the same dying flowers. I'm a bit confused because it's pretty obvious the sun is the problem. But once my dad decides he's solved a problem, it's solved. So after a bit of an argument, I cut my losses, except that I'm living here rent-free and go clear the soil, repot the flowers, and give them a nice watering. 1 week later, and the flowers are dead. My dad gets in his head that somehow I didn't get rid of the old salty soil, and after some more arguing over how the sun works, I'm off to Home Depot for more flowers and soil to plant new flowers in new soil. The next batch holds for maybe 2 weeks, until the inevitable heat death of the flower bed comes about, and my dad is left with a second batch of crisp flowers. Yet again, it's my fault for not getting rid of that darn salty soil. So he says, "Big Chip, do not stop digging until you get rid of every last inch of old soil." Here's the thing. Some of our flower beds are placed over canvas fabric, which separates it from the ground soil, a geotextile fabric to keep things level, which is what my dad thought I was digging down to. This flower bed was not one of them. There is no bottom. My dad leaves to go for a bike ride, and I start digging, and keep digging. Still digging. Lunch, back to digging. My mom and sister decided to chill outside with me, my mom telling me that this was ridiculous and my sister cheerleading me for it. My dad gets back home before dinner, and I'm about waist deep in an 8-foot long by 4-foot wide pit with a huge ring of soil around the edges, dirt all over the backyard. He barges over, smoke coming out of his nostrils, yelling at me about how I'm destroying his garden, asking what the heck I'm doing. I just said, "Well, I don't think I can get rid of all the old soil, but a couple more days of this and I think we'll be pretty safe." My sister starts laughing, and my dad has absolutely no recollection of his words until my sister has to remind him of what he said. Looking forward to tomorrow, when my dad's gonna have to help me refill the pit and come with me to a local garden center to pick out some sunflowers. Am I the jerk for banning my stepdaughter's husband from my house for ruining my daughter's proposal? My son-in-law, Jerry, stepdaughter's husband, claims to be a jokester. He makes fun of every situation and always taunts and teases. He used to be funny, but now he's just parroting internet memes and cliche jokes about everyone around him uncomfortable. He and my younger daughter, 22, are always in disagreement. She thinks he's not funny, and he thinks she's unbearable. My daughter's fiance said he wanted to help us help him set up a surprise proposal after dinner, so everyone gathered at our house, and my daughter had no idea, as well as my stepdaughter and Jerry. We had my daughter put a blindfold on and walked into the living room where her fiance was getting ready to propose. Jerry saw this and said, "What? Are you people serious? Oh my god." Everyone was looking at him with question marks over their heads. My stepdaughter said nothing. He kept laughing, and I told him to knock it off as I helped my daughter walk into the room. Once my daughter was seated, Jerry started making comments as the event progressed. Her fiance pulled out the ring box. Jerry said, "No, man, go find another pond. Fish ain't good here." Fiance got on one knee in front of my daughter and opened the box. Jerry said, "Darn, that looks expensive. How much did you spend on that, you fool?" I was fuming, and my daughter was clearly so upset. Fiance proposed, and my daughter removed her blindfold. Jerry kept talking over her when she said, "I do," saying, "Don't do this to yourself. You're too young to be dealing with this. Dude, run." I shouted, "Shut up!" He stopped and said he was just joking. I said he was being a disrespectful jerk to ruin the event with his jokes, then talked about how mean and nasty his jokes were and told him it was better if he shut up. Stepdaughter said it was no big deal when I offered that he leave. She swore he was just messing around and creating a playful atmosphere, but I took it seriously. But he essentially ruined my daughter's proposal. I told them I no longer want him to come over after this. He walked out, but my stepdaughter started crying to her dad, calling me callous, and claimed I was favoring my biological daughter, and this was an excuse to ban her from her dad's house. My husband said I overreacted and shouldn't have banned him from the house, knowing that's how he is, and I gained nothing by this except straining my relationship with my stepdaughter. But I called him unfair to see how my daughter was treated and still sided with the others. Was I the jerk? Did I handle this wrong? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Jerry? Please let us know. Jerry the jerk. Wow, that's got a ring to it. Karen thinks that rules don't apply to her because I spend money here. This is a story about a regular Karen that comes into the store I work at. I'm a shift supervisor. She routinely is a pain and is very entitled. Her favorite thing to say to excuse her demands is, "I deserve this because I spend lots of money here." This particular incident is her most insane and entitled visit to our store yet. Our store is a small store in a small mall. Karen comes in and approaches me as I'm stocking some shelves. Karen, "Excuse me, I need tissues. I'm very sweaty. I'm a runner, you know." Me, "Hi, ma'am. Unfortunately, we don't have any to give to customers due to lockdown. However, there is a public restroom across the hall that is open where we can freshen up. Or you can purchase some purse tissue and wipe packs." Karen, "No, I am a regular customer here. I've already spent enough. I don't need to buy it." Me, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I don't have any tissue to give you. You will either have to grab some from the washroom across the hall or buy some." Karen, "But I'm a runner. You really should have some available for customers like me." Karen then walked away, and I turned back to my shelf before I heard the sound of a lot of wipes being pulled from the dispenser. This occurred during the lockdown times, so we have some sanitary wipes for wiping carts at the entrance and exit of the store. I walked around the corner to see Karen pulling wipe after wipe from the dispenser and putting them into a bag. We have a store policy that is posted in the dispenser that the limit is 2 wipes per customer. Me, "Ma'am, please, you can't take all those. Those are for customers to clean their carts with. Please stop taking so many." Karen, "I've spent hundreds of dollars here. I deserve a few wipes." She then storms off further into the store. So I guess that got her to stop after all. I went back to the shelf and was left alone for around 30 minutes before I get a page to the cash. I go up to the front and I see Karen there looking upset and my cashier looking confused. Cashier, "Hey, sorry to bother you, but could you check the price of this? This customer says it should be on sale." I look at the product and recognize it as a product that was on sale last week as part of a promo. Me, "I'm 99% sure that this was on sale last week, but I'll go double check to make sure the tag is correct." I checked to see, and the product that she wanted was not on sale. However, a smaller version was. I came back and informed her as such. Karen, "No, I don't want that one. I want the big one. It was on sale last week, but I couldn't come by and get it. So can I just get the sale price now?" My cashier and I look at each other before I respond. Me, "I'm sorry, ma'am, but that's not how sales work. Do you have a rain check receipt?" "No, I wasn't able to come by. Just adjust the price. I spend so much here. I've paid all your wages, so just discount it for me." Me, "I'm sorry, but I can't do that. The sale ended last week. You will have to come back next time it's on sale." Karen, "Let me speak to your manager. I'm friends with the owner. They always give me the most recent sales price." I do as she asks and call the store manager up to the front. He comes up and hears what she has to say. To my glee, he says, "Manager, the sale ended last week. You will have to come back when it's on sale again." Karen, "Do you realize how much I spend here? I should get this on sale with how much I spend here. This place is corrupt. Manager, I'm sorry you feel that way. Unfortunately, we cannot give you a sales price now that it's no longer applicable. Otherwise, we'd do it for everyone. Is there anything else that we can do for you? No, this is disgusting. I'm not spending that much. Karen then stormed out without buying anything. What was the product she wanted? $3.99 toothpaste that was on sale for $1.99 last week. We had a smaller size of the exact toothpaste on sale for 99 cents that week, but no, she didn't want that one. Oh great, now the next manager she yells at is going to have to smell that rancid breath. Here to help, but not that kind of help. I work in emergency services as an EMT. Our station is in the same building that the county keeps its 911 dispatch center. On nights when things are slow for us downstairs, I'll often do a food/coffee run to the local Flying Goose convenience store for the folks upstairs who are pounding phones and working the radios. A caffeinated dispatcher is a happy dispatcher. The folks at the shop know me since they see me on an almost nightly basis, and since they know what I do and who the stuff is for, they grant me a little more leeway than standard customers. Nothing crazy, just stuff like making coffee or grabbing the cups and supplies from the cupboards if they're out and things are busy. Little things that save us both time because they can keep doing what they're doing and I can get back out the door. This night, me and my partner stop by to put gas in the ambulance, and I run inside to get everyone's food and find out they're out of coffee. No big deal. There's a large cluster of people waiting around the food counter, so instead of bothering the employees, I just get to work starting a few pots. I'm in a dark navy blue t-shirt with medic across the back and my squad number/logo on the front, and I'm wearing my portable radio. Definitely don't look anything like the store crew in their bright neon color store shirts when this happens. Entitled lady. Excuse me, but why aren't you making my sandwich? Me. Excuse me? Don't look at me like that. I've been standing here for 20 minutes while you were on break, and now you're going to hide over here instead of making my food? Me, laughing. You can't be serious right now. Karen, getting shrill. You think this is funny? Well, we'll see who's laughing when I report you to your manager and get you fired. Me, you go right ahead and call him and tell him I'm refusing to make you a sandwich. His phone number is 911. At this, she just starts sputtering in indignation as I turn my back to her and go to the touchscreen to order our food. Other customers, as well as the actual employees, are laughing now as she starts trying to find someone to agree with her that I'm still wrong because I was making coffee, so how was I to know? She grabbed the next order that was called, not even hers, and stormed out in embarrassment. When I got back outside and told my partner, he laughed so hard the rig was shaking. Said some crazy lady had come out, scowled at him across the parking lot and yelled, I hope you never come to my house. And now he understood why. Entitled man refuses to move from mobility parking spot. I'm a manager at the Way of Subs, and yesterday had a man park in the mobility parking space. I didn't see him park there at the time and come into our store. I'll call him Entitled Man. We were serving another customer at the time who had just started ordering. An entitled man interrupted the other customer to ask what the sub of the day was. Already, this got my hackles up because he was rude about it. I then look up and notice a car parked in said parking space, which is directly in front of our big glass doors. I looked at him and asked if that was his car. He said yes. Now, in New Zealand, people who qualify for mobility parking permits need to get a doctor to fill in the medical part of the form, and the doctor will often send the application form in for you, and you just need to pay for it. I'm not sure how other countries work, but that's us. Back to the conversation. Me. Do you have a mobility parking permit? Entitled man. No, I broke my back and I can't walk that far. Me. You need a permit to be allowed to park there. Entitled man. I'm still waiting for it to come. Me. It's illegal to park there unless you have a permit. You need to move your car. I'll just get my food, then I'll move it. It's only going to take a couple of minutes. Me. No, you need to move your car now. Entitled man then plants his feet, drops his shoulders almost like a 3-year-old who's not going to do what you asked. It sucks, but we can't actually do much to make people move from those parks other than ask them to move. The tow truck would take too long, and they would already be gone by the time the tow truck gets here. I decided to say the only thing I could in this situation. They either move their car or speed out of there like a scorned lover. And yes, this happens regularly, but most people will just move their car. I did a lot of theater in high school, so I know how to project my voice without yelling. "Sir, we will not be serving you unless you move your car." Well, he spun around like only someone who has an intact back could do and stomped out like a big man-child, threw himself into his car, and sped off like someone was chasing him. The other customers who were in the store all had a little to say. "I was about to go and move my own car. You were so intimidating." "Wow, you're not going to miss the $5 he was going to spend." "Good job. People like that guy tick me off. My grandpa needs those parks, so thank you for standing up to him." It makes me feel better when everyone else supports me. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my sister stay with me after how she's treated my girlfriend? My girlfriend, 30, is currently 4.5 months pregnant, and we're living together. My ex-wife, 32, female, and I, 30, male, just barely finalized our divorce. It was a pretty messy ending. She had an affair and we separated. Around that time, I spent more time with a close friend of mine, now my girlfriend, I've known for years. Months later, realized we had feelings and pursued a relationship. When I filed for divorce, my ex spun the story and flipped it on me. No one in my family believed her except for my sister, who's 28. And that was due to them being best friends. Throughout the whole ordeal, my sister took my ex's side, wouldn't stop bothering me about working things out with my ex since she's given me a chance after what I did to her. She was even more vicious to my girlfriend for absolutely no reason, attacking her on social media, calling her a homewrecker. Myself and my family had to talk to her many times, and I even cut contact for a while. Then, when we found out that she was pregnant, my sister's first reaction was, "Congrats on your affair, baby." She texted that to me from a different number because I have her blocked, and I knew it was her. A week ago, my mom told me my sister wanted to speak to me. She apologized for everything, admitted that she was completely immature and coming from a place of anger towards me because she's been with my ex as a support. She's been her shoulder to cry on, so she felt protective of her. During this same discussion, my sister mentioned needing some place to stay, so not only was she hoping we could make amends, but also wanting to know if it was possible to stay at our house. Suddenly, her apology didn't seem so sincere to me, and I said no, especially with not how she's treated my girlfriend. My mom is urging me to do this because my sister needs some place to stay, and it could be a way for her and my girlfriend to get to know each other better. And I can't blame my sister for her reaction when she was just believing my ex's lies. My sister is begging me to help her out and promises she'll be courteous to my girlfriend. My girlfriend thinks if I trust my sister, then she'll go along with what I think is best. But honestly, I don't, and wouldn't want to put my girlfriend in that position. Since I've doubled down on my decision, everyone thinks I'm being too hard on her for believing someone else's lies and am now refusing to help her. I feel like suddenly I'm the only sane one here since everyone seems to be bothered by this, especially my sister who wouldn't let it go. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their sister? Please let us know. Never let dramatic, toxic family members live with you. You might not be able to get them out. Entitled ex-friend is upset about me getting a job in our field. Dave, 35 male, and I, 25 female, met in an advanced math class at community college 3 years ago. I had finished my bachelor's and needed to take a couple extra classes to prep for my master's program in CS. Dave, as he came to share, had spent ages 18 to 28 playing video games in his childhood bedroom, and from 29 to 35, he had had an awakening and decided to start doing something with his life. He planned on getting his bachelor's in CS, but had somehow managed to spend 6+ years of taking part-time classes at the community college. The guy was 35, never had a job outside of one summer stocking at a grocery store a decade ago, never paid rent in his life either. When we met in that math class, despite his past, I was impressed with Dave for trying to turn his life around. The guy was smart, but over time I started seeing another side of him. Dave constantly complains about his parents, the same parents who pay his every expense, including a reloadable Starbucks card and an annual Disneyland membership, the latter of which he uses 2 to 3 times each week. Anytime I ever offered to help Dave get a good starting job in IT or CS, he'd laugh and say, "I couldn't possibly work, even part-time with my academic schedule," or $30 an hour? I'll be making 3 times that when I finish my degree. What makes him think that? His 3 months of job market experience from 2005? At the same time, he always went around saying he knew more than his professors did. He should just teach the class, etc. He'd tell everyone he's a computer scientist and a true academic. Well, this summer I got an internship turned job into a major tech and entertainment company. I am on track to finish my master's next year. The sad thing is, my friendship with Dave was over within 2 months of me getting this internship. He started calling me a sellout and saying things like working students didn't actually care about understanding computer science. They just lied and cheated to get through classes. Random crap like that. When I told him that wasn't true and that lots of students work, his response was to ignore me for a week and then write a 4-page letter saying I don't understand how hard he has it. The entitlement is mind-blowing. For a near middle-aged man who has never supported himself to tell someone who worked their way through most college and retail and as a maid, who now works full-time and mentors kids in STEM while finishing a 2nd degree, that she doesn't appreciate how hard he has it. Mind blown. Hope he's still having a good time spending 40 hours a week studying and being a computer scientist at Starbucks. Karen's stepmom tries to make rules for my kids in my own home. I share 2 sons, 11 and 7, with my ex. He left me for his wife 3 years ago. They got married right after the divorce. I mention this because there are some tensions present due to this and also due to the fact that my former in-laws and I got along so well and have not been welcoming towards X's new wife. So anyway, X and his wife put the boys in football and a church thing on their time. X actually signed them up for all the time, but neither boys like these activities. X says in his house they must do them. I say fine, but they won't do them with me. X's wife is the one with the biggest issue with my decision. She's very religious and believes that the boys should play sports and attend church. About a week ago, my oldest was picking up a certificate from one of his chosen extracurricular activities, and me, X, and his wife were there, while X's parents and sisters were outside waiting to celebrate. X's wife starts telling the boys that they need to do the church thing that Saturday afternoon, whether they like it or not, which was my parenting time, not X's, and that they need to sign up for some other stuff for football, which also fell on my parenting time. When we go outside, without the boys, they were with X, I told her she did not get to make rules or demands in my home, and she better not do that again the way she did. X's family backs me up and says she's not their parent, etc. She gets super upset at me for doing that around them, and then when X finds out, he tells me that I'm the jerk, and I should have waited and discussed it after. I told him I only care about the boys not hearing, and that he needs to nip that crap in the bud if he doesn't want stuff like that to happen again. She told me I made it even harder for their family to get along now, and I should be ashamed. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the new stepmom? Please let us know. New stepmom doesn't get to make the rules in your home. Someone need to put that Karen in check. Entitled dad wants to bend airport security rules. Gets detained by the police. So, if you can't tell from my username, I'm a pilot. Specifically, my job is to fly an air ambulance airplane, and 90% of the time, it's an awesome job. The other 10% is the type of stuff you expect that brings a job down, such as hours, paperwork, new guidelines, and the sad stuff that goes with being in a field related to medicine. Last week, however, was an experience that made me wonder how some people are able to even remotely function in society. I was at an airport in a smaller city that handles both small airline flights as well as private flying, such as flight training and corporate flights. I'm waiting with the aircraft while the flight nurses are at the hospital getting the patient ready for the trip. Part of my duty is making sure the plane is cooled down and ready to go the moment that the ambulance arrives with the patient. As such, I'm out walking around the plane doing checks and just visiting with pilots and the support personnel on their ramp. While out there, this guy pulls up at the chain link fence of the airport about 80 feet away and gets out of his car with his son, who appears to be about 10 or so. He starts yelling at us to come over. Okay, people in aviation are actually pretty friendly for the most part, and the kid hanging on the airport fence is something many of us were in our younger days. Myself and a pilot of a jet parked nearby walked over to the guy and his kid. Big mistake. The guy starts out by saying he was former military and wanted to fly, but his eyes are bad, so he went door gunner in a helicopter. He's saying things and making claims that have my BS flag flying at full staff. Oh well, whatever, we remain cordial and ask the son if he's interested in flying. He is shy, but says he is and wants to fly fighter jets. The other pilot turned out to be a retired A-10 pilot, so he starts chatting up with the kid. The father, therefore, is talking to me. Entitled Dad.
So, what do you fly?
Me. That air ambulance right over there.
Cool. How fast does that go?
Me. Average speed is around 250 to 275 miles per hour.
Would you be able to give us a ride? We will pay for gas.
Me. Sorry, company policy says I can't. Plus, I'm waiting for a patient.
Can the other guy take us?
Other pilot. No, my jet is privately owned and we only fly the owner and his family.
That's BS. Y'all have seats. Just take us for a quick flight. My kid wants to be a pilot.
Other pilot. Sorry, we can't. Plus, you have to go through TSA to come onto the ramp, and they will want you to have a pass.
I'm not leaving until one of you gives us a ride.
At this point, the other pilot and I walk away back to our planes. This guy gets in his car and drives over to the vehicle access gate, remotely manned from inside the building, and basically parks his car in front of it. A TSA agent walks out and tells the guy he needs to leave. Entitled Dad just locks the doors and rolls up the windows. About 5 minutes into this, I get the text that the ambulance has left the hospital and is on the way. Soon after, a police car pulls in behind the guy and starts to question him. Because of all of this, the ambulance had to be let through another gate and then escorted across the airport. I was told that the threat of arrest was enough to get compliance, but the guy still got a trespassing notice, as well as a citation for impeding an emergency vehicle. Wish the kid all the best. With a father like that, he will have a hard road. Speaking of airplanes, when was the last time you went on an airplane, and where did you go? Please let us know. I flew to a Karen convention about a year ago. I haven't been the same since. The time I got mistaken for a bouncer. I moved out really soon after turning 18. Not because I didn't like my parents. I love them, but they raised 4 kids, so they deserved some quiet time at home. I moved from the country to a big city. At first, it was a culture shock, but I adapted to it. A friend of mine working as a security guard/bouncer, he worked at a club in town. It wasn't a total high society thing, but it wasn't all crappy either. One night, my then roommate dragged me partying. I'm not really into clubbing, but what the heck. I went out to have a smoke and to call someone. Smoking wasn't allowed inside. My bouncer buddy saw me, and then I chilled with him, smoked and had a chat. He then went away to go to the bathroom, so I lit my second cigarette and tried to make my call. I was approached by what seemed to be a mother-daughter duo, or maybe aunt and niece, I don't know. But the girl was maybe like 18 or 19, and the woman was in her early to mid-40s. Both were clothed not very nicely, and especially the older woman screamed midlife crisis. Middle crisis lady. Hey, excuse me? She waves her hands to get my attention. Me. Huh? I slipped my phone in my pocket. So, we waited at least half an hour. No crap, we were waiting 45 minutes. Me. So? Her. So, maybe you could bring us in. Oh, I got it. She mistook me for a bouncer. Okay. The bouncers were in black jackets with security written in big white, reflecting letters on the back of the jacket and in little on the right side of the chest. And they had one of those earplugs for a radio in their ears so that they can be called if they need it inside. I was in a black bomber jacket, an AC/DC shirt, black pants, and a pair of combat boots. Me. I think this is a misunderstanding. Oh, no, there isn't. Sure, you can let us skip the line, but what if you just look the other way? She started touching my jacket, and I guess trying to be flirty. Sorry, not my thing. And we slip in? We just want to do clubbing, and I bet you need some ladies in there. She then slipped a banknote in my pocket. Younger Karen. Look, clubs need some girls, so guys buy drinks, right? Me. Sorry, I'm not working here. Older lady. Oh, come on. I know a bouncer when I see one. I'm long enough in the clubbing scene. I know you're afraid of what your boss might say. I was 21. Yeah. She then proceeds to try to flirt with me. But I know him. It's Frank, right? He's a friend of mine. Tell him I slipped in. Now my buddy came back from the toilet, raised an eyebrow when he saw me. The younger one looked at my buddy and her eyes widened. My buddy, wearing the security jacket, wore black leather gloves and had a plug in his ear and an ID card hanging around his neck. She then whispered to the older one, "She's looking at my buddy," and gets red in the face. Both then retreated to the back of the line. He asked me what happened, and I told him, and we had a laugh. I pulled the banknote out of my pocket, and this lady gave me €100. I went back in the club and bought me and my friends some beers. Thanks for beers and my groceries the next day. You're too slow. For context, I, undergrad student who commutes to uni, have been studying at home since March 2020 due to lockdown, and subsequently uni shutting all the campuses down. Because of this, we haven't had access to the uni library. A lot of the books and journals we needed were behind paywalls online, and some primary documents that aren't online at all. Fast forward to a few weeks before this year's final exams. Uni sends out email saying the library is now open again and has bookable study space. I book a space so I can access the resources again to study for my exams. Get into uni, no problem. Sit down and begin to study. But after 10 minutes, librarian walks in and comes over to me. "What are you doing here?" "I booked a study space for today." "These spaces are only for people who need them." Look around the completely empty library and ask to be allowed to stay, seeming as no one else is there. Librarian says I have to leave in 20 minutes. Go back a few days later, but only to borrow some books to study at home instead. As I'm going to the relevant shelves to collect my books, librarian approaches me again. "What are you doing?" "Collecting some books to borrow." "I told you you're not allowed to be here." Begins to rant about how I'm at risk of getting sick, while being right in my face, etc. I try to explain that we were told we are allowed to come and borrow books again for our exams, even show the email on my phone, and that I'm following all of the regulations, mask, distancing, even had a quick PCR test the day before. Also note that the library is empty again, and there's nobody on the entire campus apart from the receptionist, library, and a couple of chemistry students. Not good enough for librarian, however, who tells me that I'm too slow, and that unless I run in, grab the books, and get out, I shouldn't come back to the library. Cue malicious compliance. Put some joggers on, lace up my trainers, and make my way to uni to return books after my exams. Scan my ID, walk past the receptionist, put my bag down, and take books out. 3, 2, 1, go. Dash through the corridors. Half the lights are off because no one is on campus anymore. Up the stairs, swing the library doors open, and start weaving in between the shelves. Librarian yells, "Hey!" but I don't turn to look. Get to the corner, sling the books in the return bin, and bolt back out before the librarian even gets up from behind the desk. Make my way back downstairs, grab my bag, walk calmly past the receptionist, wishing them a nice day, and leave campus. Apparently, the librarian went ballistic and filed a bunch of complaints, but surprisingly, nothing came back to me. I've since discovered that this librarian complains about students all year, so complaints about me must have just been ignored by management. I wouldn't usually pull a stunt like this, but this year has been really hard academically, and we've been largely ignored by the uni. I was just trying to study to pass my exams, so I didn't appreciate someone like this librarian being so insensitive. Answers to a few recurring questions. 1. Managed to get most of my assignments done this year with whatever resources I could find on the uni database, JSTOR, etc. But many of the specific books on our reading lists had not been uploaded to the uni database, and we only have access to a few portals, such as Open Athens, which have been nonetheless very useful. For the exam in particular though, we needed a myriad of other books by specific academics, only a few of which we could access online. That's why I was trying to use the uni library as soon as it opened again. Also, a lot of comments here have given me some great advice on how to widen my access to online books and articles, which I'm very thankful for. 2. Many of you have suggested complaining about this librarian, which did initially cross my mind. However, earlier in the year, everyone on my course made an even bigger complaint about not having lectures for certain modules, lack of feedback, lack of info on upcoming exams, etc. But our head of course essentially told us to go away, so I didn't think an individual complaint from me was even worth it. 3. I have no idea why the uni library was empty, but I think it was a combination of me being there in the morning Having to commute to get there, it only opening recently, and perhaps because of some restrictions going on that I ran into myself. 4. The spaces between the bookshelves were very tight. As I was in constant movement, I didn't look back to see if I had knocked any books over, but I did hear a loud rattling a few times. Am I the jerk for not returning an engagement ring? So, me and my fiance dated for about 5 years. Last December, on our 5th year anniversary, he proposed to me and I accepted. In my country, engagement rings are not a major thing. Couples show that they are engaged by wearing their future wedding rings on their right hand. Once they're married, they start wearing it on their left hand. Because I always watched men proposing to women with wedding rings on American movies, internet videos, TV shows, and other media, I always had that same ideal in my head. Knowing this dream of mine, and since his family doesn't have any heirlooms or family jewels, he had a goldsmith craft a wedding ring specifically for me. He knew I didn't like fancy and flashy jewels. I'm a very discreet person, so he had a ring made for me that was exactly what I'd like. And I did. I absolutely adore it. Sadly, a couple of months ago, my fiance fell ill and passed. I'm not going to go into details about it because just writing this out makes me sob. I'm still very much not over it. Skip a few weeks, and his sister and his mom, I never really got along with neither the sister nor the mom, but we were friendly towards each other, called me asking for my engagement ring. They said that since we never got married, our wedding was scheduled for early 2022, and never will, I should give the ring to the real family since it represented a promise that will never be fulfilled. I told them no. Don't get me wrong, if it were a family jewel or family heirloom, I'd not hesitate to give it back. But it isn't. He had it made specifically for me, and I'll be keeping it because he gave it to me on our 5th year anniversary together. Now they've gone to my parents, who they've talked to like twice in all the 5 years me and fiance were together, to all their community friends, some of which I share, telling them I'm appropriating the property that doesn't really belong to me anymore. My parents are on my side. Community friends are divided. Some say the ring is rightfully mine. Some say that it was a symbol of a contract that fell through due to sad circumstances and that I should give it back, that I'm keeping one of their son's property and that it should stay with his sister to pass along to her future kids. I keep saying no, but they've been so insistent that I'm starting to second guess myself. So, am I the jerk for not giving the ring to them? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the in-laws? Please let us know. Those in-laws are sick people to pester her like that. They sound like they don't have souls, to be honest. You want that invoice paid? So for starters, I live in a small village where pretty much everyone knows who's who. I like it a lot. It gives me a sense of security that I feel is underrated in today's society. Friends and neighbors help each other out with moving, remodeling, etc. My mother-in-law wanted to have her driveway redone. Being the good son that I am, I ordered supplies and got some friends and family members to come and help out on a Saturday, after which there would be some nice cold beers. This is before lockdown, obviously. One of my friends, let's call him John, is more of an outlier and doesn't get around too much. He's a bit timid, but otherwise a very nice guy. I thought it would be a nice idea to include John in the working party, so he would get to know more folks from the village. With the work done and the driveway finished, we thanked everyone that helped for the much appreciated effort. Not too soon afterwards, I receive a letter. It was an invoice sent by John for the hours he worked, multiplied by a not too shabby hourly rate. To say I was dumbfounded would be an understatement. It's well known that this kind of work is for free. You scratch my back, I scratch yours, or so I thought. I come by John's a few days later to ask him what the invoice is all about. He says it's no big deal and that he has done it before. He can't be expected to give up his Saturday to work on somebody else's driveway. He says he thinks this is fair and that he wants to be open about it. I soon understand that John isn't going to change his mind and I don't want to get into an argument with him. I pay John myself because I'm rather embarrassed to tell my mother-in-law. A few weeks later, we're at a get-together where John happens to be too. A friend who had also helped says he's thinking of redoing his driveway as well and asks what the costs were. My mother-in-law sums up the different supplies and their costs, as well as the beers, of course. John is within hearing distance and I see him glance over. Now is my time. I raise my voice a little and I say, "Aren't you forgetting the labor costs?" She looks at me surprised and I add, "Yeah, you know, John's invoice of X amount, that racks up the bill." An uncomfortable silence descends upon the party as people frown and look at me and John, whose stature shrivels under the weight of those looks. Suffice to say, John had some explaining to do, but he didn't look so sure anymore. He wanted to be open about it, right? Under the circumstances, I must say the invoice was money well spent, although I lost a friend that day. Edit. A. In the end though, it's all a big misunderstanding which I tried to clear out by speaking to John about it, at which point I explained the point of scratching each other's back to him, especially in a town like ours. But then he persevered and doubled down, and I decided to act in the manner I described. B. John was not new to town, just new to my group of friends and family. C. John is not a contractor, but he has useful do-it-yourself experience. Parking brake. One of the reasons my marriage works is that my husband and I have very similar opinions most of the time. One of the notable exceptions to this is the parking brake. When I learned to drive, I was taught to use the parking brake every time I parked. Once I got my license, I learned that not everyone actually does that. I made a conscious decision to continue to use the parking brake for every park. It's better to use it when it's not needed than to forget it when it is needed. Also, building the habit of taking the brake on and off means I'm less likely to end up driving around with the parking brake on and eventually needing an expensive repair. My husband only uses the parking brake when he parks on a very steep hill. Parked on any hill, he turns the steering wheel so that if the car rolls, it will roll into the curb. He actually does what a lot of people do, including my driving instructor. He turns the wheel, then lets the car roll until it's touching the curb. He claims this is extra safe. I don't think it's any safer than just turning the wheel. Tires are expensive, and it's unnecessary to put wear and tear on them to leave them smashed up against a curb. We've come to an agree to disagree about the parking brake. He sometimes grumbles a little when he drives a car that I drove earlier and has to remember to take the brake off, but it's not really any kind of a big deal. Well, my stepdaughter learned to drive. Her dad has been the main driving instructor, but with his blessing, because I'm not her actual parent, I've done some driving instruction too. The first time the emergency brake came up, we explained that her dad and I had different habits about how we use the parking brake. We told her that for simplicity, while she was learning, she should do it Dad's way. But when she's out driving on her own, she'll eventually develop her own habits. This was about a year ago. Today, my stepdaughter drove, and it was the first time she parked on a hill by a curb. It was a slight hill, but definitely a hill. She parked by the curb and asked if she should use the parking brake. At the same time, I said yes, and her dad said no. He instructed her to turn the wheel and let the car roll into the curb, and that was good enough. I let him finish this instruction. When we got out though, I said that I prefer to use the emergency brake and not press the tires against the curb. I didn't say his way was wrong, I just shared that I do the same parking job a different way than her dad does it. This is a normal thing we've done throughout her learning to drive. Well, I don't know. My husband must have gotten up on the wrong side of bed because he got a little salty and said, "Maybe you should read the driver's manual and see what it says about parking." I was a little annoyed, but I was going to let it drop. However, once we got where we were headed and I had a minute, I thought I should do just that. We currently live in a different state than the one I learned to drive in, and I've never read the driver manual for this state. I have no idea what the laws or suggestions about parking brakes are. So I pulled up the state manual on my phone and looked at the section on parking. Boom, right at the top. You should use your parking brake every time you park. In the section on hill parking, it says to turn the wheel, but doesn't say to roll your car until the tire is up against the curb. I showed this to my stepdaughter and she found it hysterical, especially since her dad did learn to drive in this state, from his dad who was a retired cop, although he also rarely uses his parking brake. My husband just rolled his eyes at me. I went on to tell my stepdaughter that the most important thing is to secure her car in some way when she parks on a hill. Her dad and I are both good drivers, and as she gets more experience, she'll figure out the things that make the most sense to her. Well, what about you? Do you use the parking brake every time you park, or not? Please let us know.
I always do. One's usage of the parking brake directly correlates to their level of intelligence.
Girl who's never spoken to me asks for answers to our final. This happened last semester. Out of nowhere, I got a message on Canvas from a girl in my class while I'm out and about. I don't recognize her, just the name, but I figure it's just her asking about homework or something. No big deal, I'd check it later. So I get home and open it up. She said, "Hey, have you taken the exam yet?" And then, in the hour that I didn't reply, She sent the question mark. I messaged her back and said that I had. She replies almost instantly, saying that she's stressed and that she wants my help with it. Now, I'm definitely towards the top of all my classes, but I didn't talk in the Zoom meeting and I don't know this girl, so I have no clue why she was asking me for help. But whatever, help a girl out, you know? I messaged back that it's not graded yet and I can't see the questions anymore, but that it was all stuff from the notes and that it's open book. And I said that she'd have time to look up her answers first. That's what I did. She then asks if I can FaceTime her while she takes it so I can just give her the answers. Again, please keep in mind that she's sending these on a school platform. I have terrible anxiety, so FaceTiming anyone is out of the question, especially to help a girl I don't know cheat on a test. I was away from my phone when she sent that reply, and by the time I checked, there was no way she was getting my help. Every hour I didn't answer her, she sent me a follow-up question mark message, totaling in 3 or 4 question marks. I'd bet she was putting in more work to get me to help her than she was putting into studying. I didn't reply after that. I found out later that she was a college basketball player, so that explains some of the entitlement. Edit. Our final was available for a week. She sent me all of these within 24 hours of the due dates. Edit 2. Thank you to everyone who commented. I'm disappointed at how often this seems to happen, but I'm glad there's a community on here for sharing these frustrating experiences. Edit 3. Y'all, I had no idea you'd enjoy this story so much. I'll have to post my others soon. Thank you for the love and the awards. She did do what he asked her to do, technically. My dad frequently took my 2 older brothers, the only boys, out camping. He was former military and really into that kind of thing. Between scouts and at least 1 to 2 times a summer, it seemed they were frequently gone. So once my mom planned an at-home spa day for me and my 3 sisters. She worked full-time, but it was my dad's job that paid the bills. My mom was not a girly girl, but she was planning on going to the dollar store and spending $20, $4 each person, on nail polish, hair clips, and accessories for girls ranging from 16 to 8-ish. My dad gave her a standard lecture about how they're broke and it wasn't needed, and we, the girls, didn't even like that kind of thing, although she had already told us and we were all looking forward to it. So, like many things, Dad didn't see the need for it, so it didn't happen. But he would frequently spend over $50 each for snacks and food for the boys each camping trip, in addition to taking them to a local buffet on their way home. All told, with site fees and gas, over $250 a trip. My mom wasn't having it this time when my dad had left her a note with the supplies he needed her to pick up for the trip. Typically, this wasn't a problem as she worked at a local school, so she got out by 3 or 4 and had a 45-minute commute one way. But she wasn't excited to be spending money to allow my dad to spoil the boys after just getting a lecture on overspending just the night before. Now, she tried not to let the kids suffer from their fights, so she got their food, with one malicious compliance. My dad had asked her to pick up 2 bags of marshmallows for s'mores, which she did. When he got to the Marshmallow site and unloaded the camp food, he noticed 2 half-sized bags of mini marshmallows, and to make it more of a forget you, they were flavored and did not work with s'mores. When my dad got back, he asked her about it, and she simply replied, they were cheaper and on sale. We never did get our spa day, but my dad was more open to the occasional splurge when he was out of town. He also cut back his own spending and only took the boys to the buffet on the way home if they were going to be later or coming from out of state. Edit. He wasn't doing this because the boys deserved spoiling and we didn't. He did it because of scouts, and it taught skills he thought they could use. As a former military man, he was into, this will help you later in life. My mom barely wore makeup, so it never occurred to him that this was a need versus a desire. He didn't see how to justify the expenses, and we were super poor. That's just the way his mind worked. Am I the jerk for giving up on having a relationship with my sister? My sister, 25, and I, female 23, were best friends our whole lives and did everything together. A year after she started dating her now husband, who's 33, she moved out to be closer to him. Her husband is one of those guys who debates everyone about everything. The way it comes off to me is that he's never looking for a common ground or solution to an idea or a problem. He just wants to make you feel stupid. We very rarely had conversations where I walked away seeing him in a positive light. While they were dating, she would consistently come to me crying because he spoke rudely to her, offended her, spoke down to her. After every fight, she seemed resolved to break up, but they never did. Despite having only dated for one semi-tumultuous year, they decided to get married. My mother objected to this decision and asked if they would at least wait a year because we needed more time to get to know him and hopefully like him. Very little effort was made to get us all together and bond. Also, my mom preferred that my sister graduated college first before tying the knot. They refused to wait, and my mother was uninvited to the wedding. It's been a year since they've been married, and my sister has tried to reach out and reconnect. We all spent 3 days trying to talk it out and heal things. Every time we speak to her, things go well. After we hang up with her, she calls back saying her husband doesn't like what happened, he's furious, and we need to talk again. So we go over everything again, and it's like he refuses to let us back into her life. They subscribe to a form of Christianity that we weren't raised with. They believe that the husband gets to decide everything in their lives, including whether or not she's allowed to come visit us. After I patched things up with her again, he called me back and said I was no longer allowed to call her phone. If I wanted to speak to her, I had to call his phone and asked for her. I ask him what he wants, and he says things like, "I want you to respect our union." I don't know what that means. Then he said, "You can't have a good relationship with her unless you have a good relationship with me. We are one." So I'm supposed to pretend to like him, I guess? It's like a hostage situation. I can tell my dad wants me to open myself up to all this drama again just because she's my sister, but I feel like it doesn't matter what I do. Her husband will always say I can't have a relationship with her, and honestly, I like her less because she's allowed this to happen and won't stand up for us. Am I the jerk? Edit. I forgot to clarify that in our last 2 conversations, I told her that I care about her and that she can contact me whenever she needs to get away from him. Karen leaves a fake tip at a restaurant. Yesterday, my mom and I went out to a restaurant to get some dinner. We haven't been out to eat since before lockdown, so this was a treat for us. We got there before the dinner rush, so about 10 minutes after we were set and ordered, tons of people started turning up. One group was a family of 7. The parents, the girl, the boy, the 2 little kids, and a baby. They'd taken up 2 tables to the left of us and started up instantly with the noise. Our waitress was swamped. Her whole section got filled in the span of 5 minutes, so I didn't blame her for being stretched thin. But the dad next to us was audibly complaining about the crappy tier service. I heard him say,
I know how to get her attention.
before we saw him pull out what I thought was a $20 bill. But then I saw the other side of it, and it was white with some text. I instantly knew what it was and was appalled. I watched him fold the 20 in half and tuck it under the ketchup. The waitress saw it too and brightened and was extra nice to them. I was disgusted because I was a server for over 10 years, so I've had people pull that on me, and it's devastating to be paid pennies and think, oh, I'm getting a good tip, only to have the rug yanked out from under you with one of those fake money Bible verse pamphlets. I told my mom I was going to tell the waitress, but she said for me to mind my own business. I told her what they were doing was crappy, and despite her hushing, I waved the waitress over when my drink got low and gestured for her to lean in a bit before whispering that the 20 the table had out was fake. It was just one of those pamphlets disguised as money. She looked stunned, but thanked me. Afterwards, it was pretty obvious that the table was getting the least amount of attention she could get away with giving them. She didn't ignore them, but they were definitely her absolute last priority. I guess they didn't like that and left ASAP, leaving the fake 20 there. And yeah, I saw her pick it up, check it, and then toss it. I felt really bad for her. She was clearly busting her butt. So I left her a really good tip, 3 times the usual amount I leave. On the ride home, my mom and I got into an argument. She was mad at me for being meddlesome in things that didn't concern me. But I think I did the right thing. I'd have wanted someone to tell me if I'd been in her shoes. I got mad and snapped that she was just as bad as those jerks who thought leaving a Bible verse was adequate payment. She yelled for me to not raise my voice at her, but I said I wouldn't have if she had been a decent person. But then my brother agreed with her, so now I'm at a loss. Was I the jerk for snapping at my mom? Am I the jerk? Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have informed the waitress what they were doing or not? Please let us know.
I would have walked over there and got everyone's attention in the restaurant, then picked up the little pamphlet and exposed what these people were doing. The looks on their faces would have been priceless.
Don't turn in your paper. My kid needs to be noticed by the teacher. Backstory. It's June, and in Bulgaria, it's exam time. All of your final exams, essays, etc. are packed into a week or 2. This story is about our philosophy teacher, and more precisely, her homework. She gave us the essay final. Basically, you write an essay as your final. It's cool because it's easy and not really read and remember. It's like, what would you do if something, and why would you do that? You get the idea. She gave us that 2 weeks before the turn-in deadline. That exact deadline was 3 days ago. On to the story now. So a week before the deadline, I was pretty much done, so I decided to show it to my entitled friend. He thinks he owns the world. I made a mistake showing it to him. The only thing he said was,
Nice, that looks great.
nothing less, nothing more. This happened in school. The essay was on my Google Drive. In the afternoon, I'm at home and I get a call from an unknown number. My first guess is that my phone carrier is offering me a new tariff plan since mine is close to expiration. Nope, I was wrong. It was my entitled friend's mom, entitled parent. I guess he gave my number to him. Karen. Hello, are you OP? Me. Indeed I am. How can I help you? Hey, this is entitled friend's mother. He told me that you wrote a great-looking essay. Is that true? Me. I guess. I really like it. Well, can you not turn it in and give it to us? Excuse me? Why would I do that? Because my son really needs to be noticed. He's a really bad student. First of all, her son really is a bad student. One of the main reasons for that is because his parents constantly took him for unexpected vacations without studying for a fraction of a second and going with the excuse,
I wasn't in class.
Second, our teachers are not goats and don't graze grass. She'll notice that her worst student is now writing a great essay. Me. I am going to turn in my essay, the one I wrote. You didn't write it. My son did. You stole it. Yeah, whatever you say. All right, we'll be expecting it by Friday. A day before the deadline. Me. Whatever. I hang up. Of course I didn't. So Friday passed, Saturday, Sunday, and here we go Monday, today, the 21st of June. I already turned it in. Our teacher enters the room, checks if everyone is in class, and starts discussing the essays. Entitled friend is in the beginning of the list of students, and she goes, Nice teacher. All right, entitled friend, it looks like you didn't turn in anything. Entitled friend.
That's not true. I've written an amazing essay, but OP stole it.
Me. What? Nice teacher. What are you talking about? Entitled friend.
I showed OP my essay, and he stole it. It was on my Google Drive.
Nice teacher. Can you show me?
No, he stole it.
Our teacher is pretty good with computers, to be honest. Nice teacher. Well, he can't delete it from your Google Drive, even if he stole it. It should be on your drive. Entitled friend goes silent, and the teacher continues. I'm a bit later in the list. She comes up to my name and goes, OP, that's a great essay. It's really good. I really liked reading it. She went to everyone from the class. That was the end? Nope. We finished school, and on the way to the bus, I was stopped by a lady. It was the Karen, of course. Where do you think you're going? Me. Home? Not until you return to my son his essay and tell your teacher you lied. Me. If I say that, that's gonna be a lie. Shut up. So, just go tell the teacher and everything will be fine for you. Me. Excuse me? Are you threatening me? Yeah, you stole my property. So what was the essay about then? Son? He can't remember. Facepalm. Friend.
Well, it was about a homeless man.
Me. No. You changed it. You stole it and then you changed it. Me. First, don't yell at me. Second, even if I stole it and then changed it, that means it's no longer his. Of course it is. Whatever I say is his. My husband is a lawyer. He can take all your homework and give it to my son. Me, laughing. My nice teacher who noticed this. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave OP alone. He stole my son's essay. Nice teacher. He doesn't even remember what it's about. Also, I checked OP's document. It was edited 1 week before the deadline, and your son turned in a blank document. He stole it. This is your last warning to leave him alone, otherwise I will call the police. Fine. Ugh. At least give my son an A. He deserves it more. Nice teacher, visibly confused. Sorry, but your son is the worst in my class. That's not possible.
Ugh.
And she walks away. That's it. I can't believe that happened over a philosophy final when we have 12 other classes he can work on. But no, let's do this over a philosophy and not math, for example. Thanks for reading. My Karen half-sister demands I pay for her plastic surgery. I, 32 male, was born from my mother, Clara, 57, her cheating. She's married to Greg. I have 4 siblings who are all sisters. A, who's 36, B, who's 34, C, who's 26, and D, who's 24. My grandparents have raised me because Greg refused to raise another man's kid, and there was no paternity test needed because I was mixed. I never even met my father and didn't know his name. My grandma was an American-Italian housewife. She was clearly my caretaker and for me, my only mama. Grandpa was very strict, but an also caring man and was always an idol to me. Both my grandparents were furious to my mother, not only because of her cheating, but because she abandoned me. This situation led to my grandparents' decision to make me the only one who inherits almost everything. My grandma passed at 64 from a heart attack, and Grandpa passed at 71 with lung cancer. Grandpa had a life insurance, and I was the only beneficiary of almost $300,000. I got the house I was raised in marked value, $280,000, and last Grandpa created a family fund with $400,000. I had to manage it. The rules for this fund are simple. I can only use it for emergencies, health, crisis like now, and only for me and my half-siblings. Clara and Greg are not included in this fund. Until now, I've paid for A's IVF for her fertility issues, nearly $40,000. Her health insurance hasn't covered it. And C's appendix removal, $15,000. Health insurance has covered a great part. So far, no problems. But D plans to have plastic surgeries, a whole package of it, all kinds of surgeries. It would erase nearly half of what is left in the fund. I refused because it's not an emergency. I would be okay with paying for plastic surgery if it was needed. Example, if an accident had happened, but she just wants her makeover for her boyfriend. Of course, we had an argument which was not so pretty, and they threatened to sue me. They had sued me before, but Grandpa had made sure everything was totally fine. So, am I the jerk if I stand on my feet? Mini update. I had a talk with all of my sisters, and it came out they had no clue about D's plans. My mother tried to enable D in her lifestyle, and now my other siblings are very upset. I have invited everyone to my house and made sure again that the fund is only for health issues. It turned into a screaming match between them. I just stood out of the conflict. So I haven't had any sleep yet, and I really have to go to bed. Many of you have asked why I paid for A's IVF, simply because it affected her mental health. Many of you asked if D has deformations. No, she's just an average-looking person for her age, but she wanted to be special, her words. Again, thanks for all your responses and have a great day. What would you do in this situation? Would you pay for her plastic surgery or not? Please let us know.
Of course not, but I would pay for some serious legal counsel on how to protect this money from those jerks.
Nothing beats scummy landlords during lockdown. I hated my old apartment, needed to desperately get out, and right when I was looking for rentals last year, lockdown hit and everyone shut down. With less than a week on my lease, I had to jump at the first available home. Didn't even get to inspect it. I ended up with equally horrible property managers. I didn't have a key on day one, had to break in to move in. They didn't tell me about the German roach infestation. It's okay, I used to do pest control, so I managed, and so forth. Right when I lost power during Christmas, also okay, I live in the South, I don't get too cold. I tracked down the original property owner and asked her if I could get out of the contract and just pay her directly. We investigated many options, and the best way to get out of the contract was to just pay for the last remaining months and write a 30-day notice. They call me and tell me that I have to write them a notice, signed and sent and received on the exact date 30 days from the lease's end to be accepted, or I will lose my $1,000 security deposit. They really stressed it had to be mailed and definitely on time, or they won't be able to accept it. Cue my pettiness. I wrote a template letter with a generic, "This is a number of days till lease end." day notice. I'm writing to terminate my contract and to receive my security deposit as stated. I sent one out on my 103-day notice, then another one on my 89-day notice, then another one on my 73-day notice, and so forth. Basically, whenever I remembered about it, I would change the date around, print it, sign it, and then mail it. They call me saying this is very unnecessary and that they got my message loud and clear, but they sounded pretty rude about it, so I sent some more. I then received some passive-aggressive emails that they will honor the contract and leave me the $1,000 deposit as I have sent them a 30-day notice, but they can be tricky, and as I haven't technically sent them an exact 30 days notice, I have some more letters to send. Plus, again, they sounded pretty rude over email. Cue the final 15-day countdown till my 30-day notice letter. I upped the ante. I now have one letter per day to send, and I've changed the fonts on each letter, ranging from Papyrus to Jokerman to Comic Sans. My favorite one is the one where it's all bright yellow and barely legible. It just hurts looking at it. Oh, and better yet, I got the last batch sent as certified mail, so I get an email that they received it, and that they have to sign for it. On my 34th day notice letter, now probably the 20th letter I've mailed, I received my cashier's check back. No message or anything. Fortunately, I have 4 more letters to send. The best $43 on stamps I've ever paid. How my dad got a supermarket shut down for a day. My dad owns a small vending machine company, and for years, one of his accounts was the local grocery store. He had a couple machines in the back and the employee areas that were there for years. It was a weird little break room. It was on the 2nd floor up a narrow staircase in the stock room. To get the machines in, originally, they had used the forklift and put them through a cargo door on the 2nd floor. Years later, the store had been bought by a generic regional grocery chain, and they decided to redo the whole back area. The new manager asked my dad to remove his machines as they were going to tear down the break room. We went down on the weekend to remove them and asked if they could lower them from the cargo door for us. The manager flipped out and flatly refused, telling us it wasn't her problem and to take them down the stairs. We measured everything and figured out that they were simply too wide to go down the narrow staircase and tried to explain the problem to the manager. Her reply was, "Cut the darn things in half or I'll get a Sawzilla and do it myself." This was her critical mistake. The machines were very old and destined for the junkyard anyway, and she had just graciously offered to cut the machines in half for us. We went upstairs and took the stock plus the valuable electronic parts from the machine and left the useless shells there for her to sawzall at her pleasure. At the time, I had a friend who worked at the store who I had explained the situation to. She told me that the manager was awful and roundly disliked and some not-so-nice names that they referred to her by. A few days later, she called me up laughing. Apparently, they had planned to do the demolition overnight and open in the morning, but on the night of the demolition, there had been a major problem. 2 vending machines were still up in the break room, and they had deemed it unsafe to destroy the structure with them up there. Also, they had removed the forklifts due to the construction, so there was no way to get them down. Eventually, they had to attempt to cut the machines in half, but they're pretty tough, so it took way longer than expected. The end result was they ran far over time and had to keep the store closed a day to finish the teardown. The manager was still in charge there for a couple of years and used to glare at me anytime I was in there shopping. Am I the jerk for telling my friend I don't want to be her bridesmaid anymore? My friend, Mary, and I have known each other since we were kids. We've grown apart over the past few years, but she still considers me important enough to make me a bridesmaid. Her wedding is set to be in 3 weeks. One reason why I sort of distanced myself from her was because of her treatment of my relationship. My boyfriend, Jack, and I have been together for 3.5 years. He's a wonderful person, and there is no doubt in my mind that this is the man I want to marry. But Mary is under the impression that Jack is too good for me. Jack comes from a very wealthy background. His parents are certainly very wealthy. He was practically guaranteed a lavish life from the moment that he left the womb. This is in stark contrast to my childhood. I grew up in a low-income neighborhood, often wondering where my next meal was, or how I was going to help pay the bills at a young age, etc. I'm grateful and proud for where I am today. Jack is considered to be conventionally attractive, always looking like he should be on some magazine or billboard somewhere. Jack's good looks and background have led Mary to believe that Jack deserves better than me, as according to her, there's no way I could have pulled someone so attractive and rich. It's pretty disheartening to hear those things constantly, and it does kind of take a toll on you and the friendship. Whenever Jack is around, she's quite polite and respectful, never once making those comments. Eventually, the comments stopped. Mary invited me for lunch with her fiancé and his friend, Gary. From the moment I arrived, Mary and her fiancé were consumed in their own conversation, paying no attention to the both of us. It was fine, as Gary seemed to be a great lad with great chat. He asked me why I was single, and I told him that I was in a happy, committed relationship. He was very taken aback by my answer. He told me that Mary had set up a blind double date of sorts for the both of us. I was very confused and slightly angry. I didn't want to be confrontational at lunch, especially in public, so I just carried on with the lunch. Luckily, Gary wasn't upset and ended up making a few jokes about the whole ordeal. I called Mary later on in the day and asked her a ton of questions about why she thought it was okay to do that. At first, she tried to deny it, but then she tried to justify it by saying that
Gary is a man who's more in your league.
and since he was also a groomsman,
We needed to get you to know each other better.
I was shocked by her bluntness, so I just told her that I didn't want to be her bridesmaid anymore. Granted, it was a pretty impulsive decision, but I still stand by it. Mary didn't take it well, trying to apologize and saying that it was a mistake. It's been a few days, and her fiancé has been texting me, asking me to stop it and just do it for the wedding. I feel petty and conflicted right now. Edit. Jack knows about the date. I wouldn't keep that from him. Well, what do you think? Should OP still be Mary's bridesmaid or not? Please let us know.
No, Mary is toxic and you need to cut her out of your life.
Am I the jerk for how I responded when my stepdad asked why I didn't bring him a Father's Day gift? Context. My mom remarried when my brother and I were kids. My brother never accepted my mom's marriage, neither had I, but my brother was honest and clear about how much he disliked my stepdad for treating us like second-class citizens, forcing us to stay home and not visit family on every holiday. We had no birthday parties and were forced to work as assistants in his auto shop. My brother was isolated because of his attitude towards our stepdad and was sent to live with my aunt 8 hours away for 2 years. And I remember begging mom to take me to see him, but she said my stepdad is the one with a car and couldn't take me. I kept in contact with my brother after he was banned from the house. I was 14 at the time and couldn't travel to see him. He ended up passing a week before my 15th birthday. I was devastated I wasn't able to see, hug, or vent to him one last time. My mom got busy with my half-sister, but gradually I was forced to care for her because of my stepdad saying God sent her instead of my brother. I love my sister, but I was still broken because of what had happened with my brother, and I wasn't ready for this. I moved out at 19. My mom helped with money, and we maintained a relationship, but I never visit except my mom's family, my grandparents, my aunts and uncle, and my half-sister. I see my stepdad there occasionally, and I ignore him but act civil. We were gathered at my grandpa's house for Father's Day. I brought my grandpa and uncle gifts, and they were happy to receive them. My stepdad spoke up and said I should have given him a gift as well since he is a father figure to me, then asked why I didn't. I laughed and told him not to worry. I'll get him a gift on Narcissist Day. Most of the family bursted into laughter. My stepdad's face turned red, and he was about to blow up after hearing my response, then excused himself to the bathroom. Mom was very upset with me, but waited until I was alone, and she got mad at me for treating her husband like this, and shames me for basically calling him a narcissist in front of her family. She said she won't let me leave until I've apologized profusely for not getting him a gift, and then doubling down and being spiteful and humiliating him in front of everybody. But I refused to do it and told her off. My aunts were upset too and thought it was an inappropriate response from me and a ruined Father's Day for my stepdad who's done a lot for me. Was I the jerk for how I responded? I'm a 24-year-old male, by the way. Sorry for the confusion. Leave immediately? Bad idea, but okay. It's been a while since I've had a tale for this sub. I'm the whole IT department in the city for the crunchy food company that makes and distributes fried potatoes in my country. We'll be calling them Mr. Tato. Now, as any other big company with distribution chains, Mr. Tato relies heavily on its communication infrastructure, which makes maintenance both important and hard to schedule. This night in particular, me and my contractor buddies were scheduled to do maintenance to the electrical outlets that go to the site rack, which of course will cause internet downtime. We arrive on site. All is normal. Enter the site, I turn off all networking equipment, procure some fried goodies, and settle down while my people start doing their work. Then trouble comes when I'm contacted by Mary, the boss guard lady. Now, Mary is super nice. I have a good relationship with the security guards on the sites I work with, in part because they are usually great to drink with, in part because it always pays to get along with security. Mary tells me she was not aware we were having a midnight rendezvous with the site, which is weird because this whole thing is set up weeks in advance. She tells us to carry on, but contacts her boss. I never met her boss, but as first impressions go, this was not going to be a good one. Boss was mad. He is irate that we are working in his precious building without his knowledge and appalled that we would just march in and do the work we were scheduled to do without giving him proper tribute. Apparently, he was never CC'd on any of the multiple work emails needed to coordinate the whole thing during the previous weeks. He demands we stop what we are doing immediately and leave the premises. I try to explain myself, but he is fresh out of hoots to give, hangs up on me. I talk to Mary and explain to her what her boss actually did. And then me and my buddies comply, giggling with anticipation. Leaving immediately means we leave the electrical work half done, the site with no power, whole building with no internet, and just go. I know how this is gonna go. They know how this is gonna go. The guards know how this is gonna go. I just park outside, buy myself an energy drink, and call my supervisor first and the location manager second. Then I sit down with my buddies and the guards and enjoy the drama. See, with the site down, there's no internet, and sales cannot be made. Shipping cannot be sent. Cargo cannot be loaded. Orders cannot be put together. Every working hour without operation cost Mr. Tato himself a loss of tens of thousands of dollars. The site works 24/7, and labors were going to resume in about 3 hours. This is not obscure arcane knowledge. This is something every serious Mr. Tato employee knows. The guards are outsourced, and still they know. But because I have explained it to them in detail over drinks, and because occasionally I need to come running at 3 in the morning when something fails and stops operations, management rained hard on security guy. For a full hour, I heard him call the guards, blaming them for not explaining the situation correctly, all the while maintaining we can't work the site. Finally, at 12:30, he folds. We go in. Half an hour later, we are out. Site is powered up, all services are working, and people can come into work ignorant to how close they came to doom. What will become of security guy, I wonder? Hopefully, he learns something. Am I the jerk for not going to family dinners because they fit the time with my sister's schedule and never mine? I, 20 female, work full-time, 8 to 5 Monday through Friday. I'm currently working from home due to world events. I also live on my own. My sister, who's 18, goes to college classes in the evenings and works a couple of days a week. Ever since my sister has started her evening college classes a couple months now, every family event is centered around her schedule. Her college classes start at 5 in the evening, so our schedules overlap, meaning if we have dinner, they eat before I'm off work to coordinate with my sister. So when I get there around 5:15 to 5:30, I'm stuck eating alone while everyone else has already ate or sometime is already leaving. The issue in this matter is my grandma's birthday party. My mom put it together. Same sort of deal. My sister had class, I had to work until 5. I asked if instead of centering it around my sister's schedule, if she could be the one to eat early, and we fit into my schedule this time. My mom said it made more sense to fit around my sister's schedule. When I asked why, because I literally couldn't think of a difference it would make, she said, it just does. I spoke with my grandmother, and she said she would wait to eat with me, but everyone else wouldn't. She also could not understand the reasoning behind it, but she said since she was not the one cooking or planning, she didn't feel she had much control over it. I told my mom that unless we could start alternating, fitting with my sister's schedule one time, then mine the next, I would just start skipping out on family dinners, and that it was not fun to always have to be the one eating alone. My mom told me I was being a jerk and immature about the whole thing. I just don't feel it's fair the way we're doing it right now. Mine and my sister's are the only schedules that need to be worked around. Am I the jerk here? Editing to clarify a couple of things. Weekend dinners are not usually an option as my grandmother still works, by choice, on the weekends, so weekday evenings are usually better as she's not working. These family dinners are not a nightly thing. More of a couple of times a month thing for things like birthdays, graduations, or sometimes just to eat, but it's not nightly, more like a couple times a month. My sister does not live at home either. She lives with her boyfriend, whole different train wreck, so she's driving to my mom's as well. Only adding this to clarify that they definitely could alternate between us since she is having to come over as well. They just don't. My parents are divorced and this is my mother's side of the family, so my dad has no input here. I do provide some of the food for the dinners as well. Sometimes I will bring a dessert or something, but usually I will provide some of the food that will be cooked, like meat to be grilled as an example, since I can't bring a side dish because everyone has already eaten before I get there. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you stop going to the family dinners or not? Please let us know.
I'd still go. Food is food, bruh, but that's just me.
2 for 1 idiot combo. I work at a brunch place in the USA and had these two interactions not even 5 minutes apart. Guest 1 orders the Eggs Benedict and after receiving their food flags me down.
Excuse me, I ordered the Eggs Benedict, which was supposed to come with Canadian bacon. They gave me ham instead.
I glance at the plate, which definitely has perfectly round and brown slices of Canadian bacon, and reply, yeah, that's actually our Canadian bacon. Looks correct.
No, this looks like ham to me.
It was then I realized someone needed an education on different cuts of pork. Our Canadian bacon is from a different cut of pork than regular bacon, so it looks similar to ham, but has a slightly sweeter taste. If you prefer, I can get your Benedict remade with bacon strips instead. Guest 1 grumbles and declines, their hunger forcing them to resign to the food already in front of them. Guest 2 orders the red velvet chicken and waffles, says they're lactose intolerant. I advise them they do contain buttermilk, so would not be lactose free. I automatically omit the cream cheese frosting because cream cheese, lots of lactose. She throws in a side of eggs and I ask how she wanted them cooked. How do they come? They ask as my mind races, thinking, have you never ordered eggs before in your life? Before rattling off, scrambled, over easy, etc. Guest blurts out, scrambled, to which I mention, absolutely, we can have that made with cracked eggs only, no milk. I should have known something was up when I received a confused glance, but she said nothing of it. Their order is brought out and the guest asks for a side of whipped cream and says that we forgot the cream cheese frosting. I again warn them that these items definitely contain lactose. They respond, yeah, that's fine. Was this a made-up allergy, or does this person not know the types of food they can or can't eat? I guess we'll never know. Karen refused to clean up our mess, so I tried to get her fired. My wife and I were out of town getting ready to celebrate Father's Day, which is tomorrow. Anyway, my parents' house was already packed with relatives gathering for the occasion, and there was no way we were going to sleep on the floor in a house full of people. So my wife and I ended up going to a hotel in the area not too far away from my parents' house. So we booked a room and spent a couple of nights there. My wife was feeling ill all day yesterday and ended up throwing up twice. Second time, she couldn't get to the bathroom in time, so it happened near the bed. She had a big dinner despite feeling sick, and well, the carpet was an absolute mess. The bed sheets caught some of it as well. I immediately called the hotel's housekeeper. She was so young, I think around 19 to 28 years of age, to come and clean up. She took forever before finally arriving. She looked shocked upon discovering that it was throw up that she had to clean up and looked up at me and said,
Ew, gross.
and asked if I called her to clean that. I said yes. She complained that I didn't tell her she had to clean this stuff up and said that she was sorry, but she wouldn't come near that. I was confused, and I told her that she could get someone else to do it instead, but she replied that if she asked others to do her job for her, then they would hold it over her head. She then tried to hand me the tools to do it myself while she waited from a distance. I said, absolutely not. She replied it was my wife's throw up, so I shouldn't react the way I did. I saw my wife looking at me. I flipped out and told her it's her job that she gets paid for. I said I was going straight to the hotel manager for poor service, and she starts freaking out, begging me to let it go. I told her to get out, but she kept whining about getting possibly fired this time, and said her dad won't be happy on Father's Day if she loses her job. My wife felt sorry for her and wanted to clean it up herself, but I insisted she gets rest. I spoke to the manager, who apologized and sent an older housekeeper, but I still left a bad review on the hotel. We checked out this morning, and my brother was able to find us another hotel. My wife says she couldn't help but think about that young lady who I called the manager on for having a natural reaction to throw up that she couldn't control. I said that she's a housekeeper and she should expect to do these kinds of things. My wife thinks I was too hard on her and shouldn't have overreacted and potentially got her fired. I couldn't help but think about what she said. So, am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the housekeeper? Please let us know. Bruh. Entitled friend learns to choose their words carefully. Backstory. I had a friend who we'll call Josh, which is obviously not his actual name. Josh and I had been friends since we were young. Turns out, liking Transformers, wrestling, and Hot Wheels makes it really easy to make friends in elementary school, or primary school for those on the other side of the Atlantic. Josh originally was a pretty good guy, but his parents had issues with one another and eventually split up. His mother remarried and his stepfather began to spoil Josh rotten. Josh began to become a lot more antagonistic, and we grew distant as the years went on, but I tried to remain friendly with him, hoping he'd eventually see the error of his ways. He went through multiple relationships, all of them ending by his hand, but I was unaware as he only spoon-fed me information and made the other party look like they were in the wrong. The incident. Josh had recently had a breakup with a girl who we'll be calling Megan, who I was friendly with before the breakup. Whilst I was worried about Megan due to us being friends, I stupidly decided to check on Josh first. Now, I had let Josh borrow stuff from me, including multiple gaming consoles, clothes, and even a few bits of furniture. I tried to be a good friend, but I didn't know that I was being taken advantage of. We had decided to order some pizza, and Josh had unwittingly ordered from local pizza, where Megan worked. Local pizza doesn't deliver. Josh persuaded me to go and get the pizza. In reality, he basically demanded it because he was too lazy to drive that way. I decided to bite the bullet and just drive my way to the local pizza and walked inside. Lo and behold, I met with Megan, who was on break at the moment. Megan and I spoke about things and the topic of Josh came up. It was busy and our order wasn't even done yet, so I didn't mind stopping to chat until Megan began to tell me her side of things. It turned out Josh had been a major jerk to Megan until Megan's brother, Drake, stepped in and pulled his sister out of the relationship. Drake had been a friend as well, but Josh had fed me lies, so I stopped speaking to Drake. I didn't want to believe Megan at first until she called Drake, who corroborated her story. It was a lot to swallow. Josh's breakups began to make a lot more sense now, and I felt sick. Was I friends with a horrible person? I asked Megan some questions, and she told me her side of the story and ended up calling out a lot of Josh's flat-out lies. After the pizza was done, I promised Megan that I'd talk to Josh about this as someone who'd been close to him for years. She thought that maybe I'd be able to get through to him. Oh, were we both wrong. I got back to Josh's and just spoke about things until I managed to get on the topic of Megan. I mentioned to him that we spoke and what she had said. Big mistake. He got angry and called Megan a lying jerk and declared that I shouldn't believe her. I told him that Drake corroborated her story and that I was going through a lot of stress trying to make heads or tails of all of this. Josh, now absolutely livid, screams at me.
Shut up! Get out! You wanna believe them? Take your stuff and go.
I was shocked. I tried to say something, but Josh cut me off.
I said get out. Take your stuff and get out of my house. You wanna believe her and that stupid brother of hers? Fine. Tell everyone how much of a horrible person I am. Let's see who believes you.
Malicious compliances. Yep, you read that right, dear reader. Compliances, plural. Now, whilst I'm not a big fan of confrontation, I also despise being yelled at. He wants me to take my stuff and go? So be it. I just give him an, okay Josh, I'll take my things and go. So I began to take it all back. Gaming consoles, clothes, and I even grabbed the stand-up mirror I'd let him borrow ages ago. He tried to stop me multiple times, but I simply pushed past him and reiterated his words. He wanted me to shut up, grab my things, and go. So I did. PS2 I let him borrow? Taking that back. GameCube he borrowed so he could play some games he got at a thrift store. That's mine. Taking that home. I took everything that was mine, packed it into my car, and ignored him as he screamed, ranted, and raved at me threatening to call the police. I simply dared him to, as I was only taking back my things. When I left, I called Megan and Drake and told them what happened. They said they had my back in case things went awry after this. Then I let them in on the second thing he said.
Tell everyone how much of a horrible person I am.
Okay, Josh, bet. Megan, Drake, and I went through our contacts for anyone who knew Josh and told them what happened. One of these people was Josh's own mother, who was absolutely livid at him as Josh was living in his home on his mother and stepfather's dime. The fallout. Josh's reputation pretty much collapsed out from under him as evidence came to light, and Josh's various exes, emboldened by Megan and Drake coming out with their stories, began to spread their own stories on what had happened. Josh's friend circle turned on him rather quickly, finding out how much of a jerk he actually was. What made all of this worse for Josh was all of these stories had evidence, such as text, camera footage, and audio recordings, all of this evidence making it obvious that those Josh heard weren't lying. Josh's mother and stepfather ended up pulling his sizable allowance due to this, and he couldn't afford his home, so he was forced to move back in with them. Josh and I still don't talk anymore, and he had to sell off a lot of his furniture and personal possessions to pay off the debt he had managed to rack up after his allowance was pulled. I've heard that Josh has changed and is getting better, but after this crap he put me through, I'd rather be keeping my distance. Your contract is almost up. You should start looking for other jobs. First, a little background story. Doug works for one of the larger banks here in Canada. For someone without post-secondary, he's done incredibly well for himself. He's 28 now and has been working with this bank for almost 9 years. He started as a teller and worked his way all the way up to just below a branch manager, but more customer service oriented. This story starts February 2020, right as lockdown was starting to snowball here. Doug had worked in a few different branches over the years and is quite personable. When a former colleague told him about a position in the wealth department, he thought it might be good for a change. It was also work from a small office downtown, which meant he didn't have to go into a branch every day and deal with customers and employees face to face. He decided to apply. With a good recommendation, he got an interview. How this position works is he essentially would be working directly for two big investment banker types, but there was an office manager, we'll call her Sarah, who he also reported to as well. This office manager trained him, provided support, etc. During the interview, he was told that the base salary for the new position was $10,000 per year less, but there was monthly bonuses paid out that would bring him well over the salary cap for his previous position. Once he accepted, it didn't really sit well with me since he didn't get that in writing. He got along wonderfully with his investment banker bosses. They loved having someone so personable who also had connections in the branch. The divisions were kept pretty church and state, retail and wealth, so it saved a lot of time having Doug around since he could just message friends from retail to get information without having to go through all of the typical hoops. He also knew most of the systems already and got all of the courses he needed very quickly. Once lockdown got bad, offices were shut down. Everyone had to work from home. Since Doug was new, he got kind of done over. He was one of the last people to get a laptop. You can't use your own. Had one monitor. Regularly got stuck going into the office to mail things. Also, since he was new, he had a lot of questions and needed help regularly. With work from home, that meant Sarah had to put in a lot of effort to answer his questions. She was a miserable person. She was condescending, took a long time to answer him, or would just say, "Figure it out." It was incredibly frustrating for Doug, especially considering the bonus he was receiving was a fraction of what he was promised. He was making considerably less money and was doing a lot more work. After about a year, February 2021 at this point, Doug was doing very well at his position. The investment bankers regularly praised him, and they even got him fancy Christmas gifts. The only downside was Sarah. She was still giving Doug a very hard time and just generally being rude and condescending. When Doug's 1 year rolled around, Sarah had a meeting with him about some issues a client was having. At the end of the meeting, she said,
"Since your contract renewal is coming up, you might want to consider keeping your options open and looking for some other positions in other departments."
We both knew this was an empty threat since his actual bosses basically needed him at this point. One of them started having some pretty serious health issues, and Doug was a superstar helping him through it while maintaining his book of business. We knew this was just Sarah trying to make him feel small. Even still, Doug was pretty upset after hearing this. He had been putting in 12-hour days for less money and was borderline being bullied by Sarah the entire time, so he decided to take her advice. He sent out one application to a different division of the bank, got a call back the same day. Turns out the lady who runs this division for our province used to work with Doug. She was his branch manager back when he was a teller. With this bank, in order to move to other departments, they touched base with your current boss. They spoke to both of his investment banker bosses, and they were taken by total surprise. They called Doug to see why he was quitting since he was doing so well. They had no idea Sarah had promised him more money in the interview and that he took a pay cut to be there. They had no idea Sarah had been treating him the way she had been since they didn't interact with her often. A day or two later, he had a Zoom meeting with the investment banker bosses and Sarah. They tried to counter-offer him the same salary, $17,000 more per year, and Sarah changed her tune completely. Tried to backpedal on what she said about looking for other positions. Doug politely declined their offer and accepted the new position, partly because he felt taken advantage of since they were so easily able to give him almost a $20,000 pay raise, but also because he didn't feel secure in the position due to Sarah's remarks. His investment banker bosses still call him regularly, 4 months later, to help with clients. Some of their clients only want to speak with Doug, or they need Doug's help with systems he designed to make their lives easier. Now Doug works from home still, makes $17,000 more per year than he did in the wealth department, and his investment banker bosses pay him a few hundred a week for his freelance work. Oh, and the best of it all is that Sarah took on all of Doug's duties for months while they found his replacement. Doug's investment banker bosses told him their new assistant is someone who worked in the mailroom at the office. He took 3 attempts to pass his exams and has no idea what he's doing. Have you ever had a coworker bully you? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
You bully me all the time by making me listen to all these stories.
It finally happened. Entitled parents demanded my print. Honestly, I've never ran into a Karen or an entitled person before, but I finally had my run-in today with an entitled young couple. On with the story. So I had bought a nice print made by an artist located in Georgia, USA, a couple months ago, and have finally got it framed properly by Hobby Lobby. I like their services. And since this was my very first piece of artwork that wasn't some $10 poster, I wanted to go all out and make it look nice. However, a half hour ago, I went in to pick it up and it turned out beautifully. But there was another young couple sort of lurking around the pictures and framing area of the store, and I could see them looking at me and my new print, which was being bagged by the very nice framing lady. Honestly, Hobby Lobby, your employees are so sweet and helpful. As it was being bagged, they approached and looked at my print, commenting how nice it was and asking where I got it, etc. Being an introvert, but also enjoying conversation, I told them my little tale about how I got it, and they thanked me. All is well, right? Wrong. A few minutes later, the framing lady got called elsewhere and left me and my framed print with a half-finished receipt, so I waited and hopped on my phone to answer some emails and texts from work. I work from home sometimes, but as I looked up, there was the entitled wife picking up my print, with entitled husband standing behind her marveling at it. Me. Hey, could y'all please put my print down? This was a lot of money to do, and it's my first piece of artwork ever.
Oh, hush. I'm just looking at it. I'm not hurting it now, am I?
Me. Yeah, you are. You could potentially break the backing, which is just paper, and then I'd have to get it fixed, and I don't have all day to be here. Please put my property down. Entitled husband stands between us.
Look, kid, we want this painting, and we just got married 6 months ago, and we could really use something nice to go in our bedroom to commemorate our 6-month anniversary.
Me. It's not for sale, sir. I don't want to have to go back to Georgia to buy a new one. Go find the artist yourself. I gave you his name.
I don't care. You bought it before. You can buy it again.
At this point, she was causing a scene, and entitled husband was constantly blocking my way to save precious print. Then finally, the nice lady at Hobby Lobby came back. Nice lady. Excuse me, that's his. Entitled husband.
No, He stole it from us and is trying to claim it's his. We found this here in the store first, and he just wants it for himself.
Karen.
Yeah, we found it a few aisles down.
Me. They're lying. You know I came in here 2 weeks ago for this print, ma'am. The nice lady then looks at me and nods with a smirk. Nice lady. So, you two claim that you found this in my store, correct? The couple almost in unison.
Yup.
Nice lady. Well then, you would know that we don't sell anything with an artist's signature. But if you really do claim it's yours, then what's the artist's name? Neither of them could give an answer. Then I chime in to give the right one. Sorry, I'm not going to advertise the artist's name here out of respect for him. Then the nice lady simply told both of them to leave the store immediately or else she would have them trespassed. And since it was in a strip mall area, that means they would have been trespassed from the entire mall area. Sadly, they didn't escalate it like most stories, but it was nice to see some very entitled people get their just desserts. Performance review metrics in retail fail to consider that an entry-level employee might possess basic math skills. I used to work at a department store where the majority of sales volume came from clothing, and the primary target customer was women in their 30s and 40s. The raises there were based on a performance review, and at my first one, I got a 3% raise. So for the next year, I busted my butt in hopes of getting the maximum possible raise of 5% at my next review. Well, when the time came, despite having a very good review, I probably had the highest scores out of the 5 or so people in my department, the customer service desk, I still only received a 3% raise. I was devastated. After leaving the office, I headed up to the break room and looked over the metrics in more detail. That's when I noticed that a full 30% of my review score came from the store's averaging score on the customer satisfaction surveys that print out with every receipt. Now, this particular company does not offer any incentive whatsoever to its customers, like 5 random respondents each month will win a $50 gift card to take the surveys, and you had to fill them out within a fairly short time period after your trip. I think it was 24 to 48 hours. So even though we had hundreds of customers come through the store every single day, we only received around 20 to 25 survey responses per week, so 3 or 4 per day. And of course, without any incentive to complete them, a customer who'd had a bad experience would be far more likely to submit a survey than usual. In fact, I remember once or twice having a manager who had just denied a grumpy Karen's demands discreetly tell me, "Don't give her the survey slip." So, although we delivered a 5 out of 5 experience with 99% of all of our customers, the store's customer service score frequently fell in the range of 60 to 80%, varying wildly from one week to the next. Sure, there were times when our rolling weekly average would hit 100% for a few days, but I could never bring myself to reach the level of excitement over these occurrences that the managers tried to drum up in our morning huddles, knowing that it really just boiled down to us being lucky that whoever hadn't been 100% satisfied during that time period had just not bothered to fill out the survey. In statistics terms, the sample size of this survey was far too small to produce anything resembling an accurate representation of our true customer service performance. While I've never taken a statistics class, I have a passing interest in the subject, and based on the limited knowledge I've acquired throughout my life, I'd speculate that the margin of error for this survey score was probably on the order of 10 to 20 percentage points. This meant that nearly a third of my total review score was based on what was, essentially, a random number. So I continued to look over the various factors of the performance review score and their associated weights, and I reached a few enlightening conclusions. First, even if I got a perfect score on everything that could directly control all of the factors related to individual performance, the only way I could reach that 5% tier was for the store's survey scores for the year to average 90% or more. An annual average of anything under 75% would earn just 2 out of 5 points on the review. Our store's annual average was usually in the low 80s. Secondly, as hard as I had worked on performing all of my individual performance metrics over the past year, I had gotten 4 out of 5 points on most of them, with only a couple 5 out of 5s. This still left me several points short of the threshold for even the 4% raise. So I did some calculations and determined that if, over the next year, I discontinued all attempts to impress my managers, put forth only as much effort as the employees that were college students, and just showed up on time for all of my shifts, I'd end up with all 2s and 3s on my next review. but the store's survey score would actually help my score enough to still qualify me for a 3% raise. So that's exactly what I did. I stopped trying to do things as quickly as possible and instead worked at a pace that would avoid breaking a sweat. And mind you, for some reason the store was always around 76 to 78 degrees Fahrenheit. So this meant I actually moved even more slowly than is my natural inclination, which tends to be a bit faster than your average person. When working a cashier shift, I stopped proactively scanning the spare copies of the coupons that were kept at each cash register for the various 15% off everything coupons that were constantly sent out in the mail for every customer who came through my line. We were allowed, mildly encouraged, but certainly not required to do this. Instead, only scanning it for folks who explicitly asked if I had it. If I wasn't working at a register, where it would be blatantly obvious, I'd spend 20 to 25 minutes on my 15-minute breaks. When working a shift on the sales floor, instead of working diligently and methodically to straighten up every shelf and table, I just spend enough time on the worst ones to get them looking reasonably decent, then spend an hour or two just walking laps around the store, looking like I was on my way somewhere, stopping only when a customer flagged me down. Whenever I was working directly with a customer, I'd still provide great customer service, but for everyone else, I was just phoning it in. Sure enough, a year later, the comments on my review were a lot more critical than they had ever been, and yet I once again had a 3% raise. That raise was oh so much more rewarding than any of the previous ones had been. This became my status quo for the rest of the time I worked there, until I landed a full-time tech support job and said sayonara to retail once and for all. I distinctly remember when I turned in my notice, the store manager said, "Well, we'll miss you. If you ever want to come back for some extra cash around the holidays or anything, we'll bring you back on at the same rate you have now." I was making $8.43, while the state minimum was $7.25. My new job was paying me $11 an hour. I said, "Yeah, that's not going to happen." "I don't care who you get to come in, lady. It isn't me. I'm a travel nurse that works in surgery. In my field, we frequently have to be on call, where we have to sit around at home after our normal hours. If we are called, in this instant by the hospital operator, we come in for whatever surgery they need us to work. This one place I worked gave me all sorts of problems, from trying to do me out of pay to giving me the worst assignments, to flat out assigning me to be on call more often than others. When it was finally about time for me to leave, I was over everything about that department. I did notice, however, that they had me on the schedule as being on call several times, up to 2 to 3 weeks after my contract had ended. I ignored it and gleefully went on to my next assignment. About 2 weeks later, my phone rang with a Kentucky phone number. It was 5 a.m. on a Saturday, so I ignored it. They called 2 more times before I picked up, and the conversation went like this. Me: "Hello? Operator:
Is this McNew? Why didn't you answer the first few calls? You are on call. You are required to answer."
Me: "First, yes, I am McNew. Second, I didn't feel like answering those calls at 5 a.m. Third, I can assure you I am not on call." Operator:
"Yes, you are. You need to come in. One of the doctors wants to do
insert non-emergent elective surgery here
at 7 a.m.
Me: "Lady, there's no way I'm going to make it there by 7 a.m. She interrupts me.
"Why not? You are responsible for responding to being called in within 30 minutes, which I will be tracking from my first call that you ignored."
Me: "Listen, I'm currently an 11-hour drive away. I do not work at your hospital anymore. I suggest you get a hold of the surgery department's manager." Operator:
"Oh, okay. I'll try that."
I lay back down, and 15 minutes later, I get another call. I answer, and I immediately recognize the shrill voice. Department manager:
"Why aren't you going into work? You are expected to be responsible when on call."
Me: "Well, if I factor in the time zone difference, it will be about 5 p.m. before I arrive. How do you not realize the person you are yelling at hasn't worked for you for weeks?" DM then hits me with the absolute silliest question.
"Well, who am I supposed to get to cover this call and come into work?"
Me: "I truly do not care. I suppose the manager could go in and take care of it though." Click. I hung up the phone and thankfully did not receive any more calls. Am I the jerk for leaving a meal at my partner's friend's house and stranding him there? My partner's friends and I have never got on very well. Our personalities just don't gel, and apart from my partner, we have nothing in common. One of them decided to throw a dinner party. They asked about allergies, and I actually have a pretty unusual one. I come out in rashes if I eat lychee, which really upsets me because I love lychee. Anyway, I told them about this allergy, even though hardly anyone uses lychee in recipes. Can you see where this is going? The evening arrives. I don't drink anyway, so I drive us both to their house. The dinner party begins. It's going quite nicely. Conversation is pleasant. Then they serve the starter. It has lychee in it. Thinking about how much effort they had to go to obtain and think of a savory dish, I was pretty angry but held it in. Then the main had lychee too. This is the point where I walked out. In fact, I walked home. It was only about 5 miles, and the walk helped clear my head. I ignored the phone calls from my partner, although I did message to say I was safely home. I had forgotten I was my partner's lift home. He got a taxi back a couple of hours later, and we had an argument where he thought I was wrong for leaving him unable to get home. He had had a bottle of wine by the time I left, and I was upset that he hadn't told his friends that what they had done was not how you treat people that you've invited to your house. I was also upset that he had stayed there anyway. If my friends had treated him like that, I'd have left their house along with him. Who was right and wrong? Both? Neither? Edit. This blew up overnight. Sorry I can't reply to everyone individually. Events of the next day. First, he woke up extra early, walked over there and retrieved my car so I wouldn't have to. Turns out, he phoned the taxi about 10 minutes after I had left. He showed me the log, so most of the time he spent there was waiting for the taxi. He did confront them and asked them what they were playing at. Turns out it was some sort of revenge for a barbecue a month earlier that had included vegetarian and halloumi skewers that we brought. One of his friends is lactose intolerant. He said that he's actually the one who prepared those. He didn't know his friend was lactose intolerant, and even if it had been me being deliberate, this isn't the way adults respond. If they had a problem with it, they should have said so at the point, not cooked up a nasty revenge. They messaged him after he left, and his reply is he'll accept their apology if and when I do. For some people asking, they did know it's a rash level allergy, not a death level allergy. They wanted to make me uncomfortable, which is still horrible. So yeah, turns out he does stand up to them when really pushed. Edit 2. I don't think they actually intended me to eat it. I feel like if it was the goal, they'd have disguised it within the dishes. There were whole lychee on top of the dish. I think it was meant to be obvious to me that they were in there with the intention of feeling left out rather than harmed. Speaking of allergies, do you have anything you're allergic to? And if so, what is it? Please let us know.
I'm allergic to thumbs downs, so please give the video a thumbs up instead. Thank you.
My entitled mother demands my inheritance. We've got me, 35, female. We've got my mom, 59, female. My paternal grandmother has passed. In her will, she left money to several people. My mother and myself were included. I was given roughly $120,000. My mother was given $10,000, which surprised both of us because she and my grandparents never got along. Grandfather has also passed. I know $120,000 sounds like a lot, especially when you compare it to $10,000. However, the past few years have been quite rough financially. Mom and I were both on food stamps at one point, and I'm not going to have much money left over once I pay off student loans, credit cards, my car note, etc. So this is what I'd like to do, apart from paying bills. I set aside some money for St. Jude, some for my cousins, who were not named in the will, but who were close to my grandmother, and an extra $10,000 for my mother. This plan makes my mother very upset. She says I need to give her at least $25,000. She wants to get a new apartment and start a home business, and she says me not giving her the extra money is ensuring that she cannot live a good life. She has brought it up so many times now. She presses me on this pretty much daily, even though I've told her to stop. I'm really starting to doubt myself here. Would I be the jerk if I refused to give her any more? Edit 1. To everyone concerned about taxes, I appreciate it, but there's no need to worry. That aspect of things has already been handled. Also, I plan on meeting with a financial advisor very soon. Edit 2. I am sincerely grateful to everyone offering their input and support. My inbox is going crazy. It may take me a while, but no matter how many comments there are, I will be reading every single one. Thank you. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or their mom? Please let us know.
That money was left to OP. She can do whatever she wants with it.
We don't pay you to be 2 minutes late. I've worked at many retail chains, but have had many terrible bosses. Here's one story I think I can give up without any repercussions. At a small, specific retail store, 5 to 6 years ago at this point, I was confronted by my old boss on a specific event that I was late by 2 minutes. Previous day, he had asked me to come in on my day off. I'm at an earlier time than I normally do. I agreed to come in on my day off and work a shift I'm not normally used to. But it's retail, it cannot be that difficult. My old boss asked me to work 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. and I showed up at 7:02 a.m., which in my state, there is a 5-minute window for everyone, and this was 100% not a habit of mine at all. I'm normally one to show up 5 minutes early every day and wait aside the time clock. I clocked on and walked to my department with a drink I had already purchased the previous day. As I walked into the department, the manager greeted me, then said,
When I schedule you at 7 a.m., I expect you to be in department by 7 a.m., not a minute later. We can't pay you to clock in, buy something, and then start working. Over the course of a year, that adds up to hundreds of dollars of lost labor for one individual.
I told my old boss that my drink was from the previous day and that I just clocked in 2 minutes late. My old boss replied with,
That's not my problem. You need to plan better. You were scheduled at 7, and we are losing cost of labor each minute you are not here. Be in department at scheduled time.
Which is not true. I spoke regularly with a payroll employee, and she explained to me quite some time prior that the company does not pay you 3 minutes before or after your scheduled time. So if you clock on at 7 a.m., you are not getting paid until 7:03 a.m. If you clock on at 6:57 a.m., you are not getting paid until 7 a.m. Same for when you return from lunch. However, if you clock on at 7:04, after that 3-minute window, you begin getting paid immediately that minute. My boss was right. I need to plan better. I asked for a printout of my timestamps going back as far as they had record of, and I tallied up each day that I had arrived 3 minutes early and did not get paid for it. I counted well over 330 minutes within a 3-month span that I was not getting paid for, which ended up being a little over $110. I gave my old boss a copy and said, You can pay me for these dates where I was in department on the dot without getting paid for it. My old boss then replied,
That's not how our company policy works.
He then went into detail to explain to me exactly what I had already known and gave him a copy of. Yet my old boss is now recognizing that he's contradicted himself and willingly lied to me. When everything clicked in his head that he's contradicting himself, it was far too obvious because his face went bright red and he started smiling. In my opinion, like he had been caught. My old boss.
Well, you know the policy. We can't pay you for that.
Me. Then I will begin my shift when I am getting paid, not the minute you schedule me. It's not like you're losing labor if you're not even paying the employees that window of time. Schedule me at 7 if you like, but I will not be clocking in until 4 minutes after the scheduled time, as you will not be losing any cost of labor for it, and I will not be losing pay over your personal policy. For about 3 weeks, I clocked in 4 minutes late every day, no matter how early I arrived. I eventually got a warning from the building's HR that it's riding the line and very close to getting a write-up and down the discipline road. I explained to her the entire story, as she seemingly did not like the manager of mine either. She laughed pretty hard at the whole thing and offered me a department transfer with a higher pay. She reminded me that my behavior was listed under a category that could get me terminated and thought the transfer would be a fresh start. Instead, I put in my 2 weeks notice and thanked her for the wonderful opportunity. The funniest part of all of this, years later I saw my old manager working at a new chain in a similar position to what he was doing when I worked for him. He smiled and waved. I smiled and waved and continued on. As time went on, I also bumped into the old HR manager who was working in an entirely different field. I asked her why my old boss left that company. She laughed and said, "He didn't leave. We fired him for time theft." Apparently, my old boss would take a lunch, leave the building, and never clock out for it. Have you ever had a boss who stayed on your case about what time you showed up for your shift? If so, what did you do about it? Please let us know.
I always love it when employees learn to use the time clock to their advantage.
Entitled friend calls her parents toxic because they want her to get a job. My friend and I are both 20. I'm on summer break from college and I have a job at a local grocery store that I work at during the summer. My friend is not in college and doesn't work. She's only ever had one job that she lasted a month at before getting fired for hooking up with a coworker in the bathroom and smoking in the break room. Also, mouthing off to everyone constantly. There were so many complaints against her. She constantly complains to me about how toxic her parents are. They yell at her because she doesn't have a job. She stays up all night with her boyfriend. They're loud. They sleep until 3 to 4 p.m. every day. For not being in college, for always running her mouth at them and screaming at them. She leaves messes everywhere and complains about her parents yelling at her to keep the house clean, stuff like that. Her boyfriend also lives in her room. He does work part-time, 5 p.m. to 1 a.m., and she complains to me that she's lonely when he's at work. She also gets mad at me when I'm on my days off from work for not hanging out with her every single time. I like to have time to myself. She told me that her parents said she has until July 31st to find a job or she's getting kicked out. She's known about this since last month. She keeps using the excuse of having social and driving anxiety, and that's why she can't work. Social anxiety? But she goes to parties. Driving anxiety? She drove to an amusement park that was 4 hours away earlier this year. She also keeps using the excuse that everyone around here is requiring experience. Home Depot isn't, McDonald's isn't, Walmart isn't, senior living places aren't, hotels aren't, most restaurants aren't requiring experience. I went on Indeed, and a lot of places are hiring on the spot, no experience required. When I brought that to her attention, she said she doesn't want to be seen at McDonald's, Walmart, or most places I mentioned, and it's embarrassing. She said only dumb people work there. I told her, well, you can't exactly be picky about where you want to work. You have no experience. You have until July 31st to find a job. Unless you want to be homeless, I would start applying everywhere if I were you. She said both of her parents have master's degrees and make a lot of money. There's no reason for her to work, and they are being unfair. I told her that they worked hard to get their master's degrees, and that's not a good attitude to have. Don't you want to eventually be able to move out and have your own money? She said no, she doesn't want to move out into a crappy apartment, and she likes her parents' massive house. I said, well, if you don't get a job, you won't be living there much longer, and she started yelling at me. She asked if she can stay with me if she gets kicked out, and I said no, that won't be happening, because I will be going back to college in August. She started yelling at me and calling me names. Also, she's called my parents' house trash before, so why would she even want to live there? She sent me videos of her screaming at her parents because they won't give her money when we do hang out. She wants me to pay for her. I don't pay for her and suggest free things which she doesn't like. She calls me a cheap jerk, and I tell her to get a job if she wants to do things she can't afford. She then starts screaming and complaining about her parents being toxic. She doesn't think she should have to clean around the house and that it's their house. If they want it clean, then hire a maid. I said, but you live there rent-free and you're home all the time. The least you could do is some light cleaning and keep your personal space clean. I work and I have to keep my room clean and do chores around the house. And she said,
That's because your parents are poorer than mine. Mine can hire a maid.
if I was in her position and I didn't want to be in the streets, I would be applying everywhere, and I would be grateful that my parents haven't kicked me out yet. Numerous people have stopped being her friend because she's so mean and dumps all of her issues on them and constantly plays the victim. It's never her. They are always the problem. She just says that they're terrible people, their loss, and moves on. She doesn't care. She also makes fun of me because I've never had a boyfriend, and she always brags about her boyfriend and their life. She also thinks it's weird because I don't like to get drunk and go to parties. I just don't like parties. They aren't my thing. She said she can't wait until she turns 21 because then she gets to go to clubs. Apparently, I seriously do question myself why I'm friends with her a lot, and I can't wait to go back to college to get away from her. I go to college out of state, so I don't have to deal with her for most of the year. I mean, she does reach out, but I don't respond that often because I'm busy. Well, what would you do in this situation? Would you stay friends with this person or not? Please let us know.
She's definitely a little monster, but her parents are also to blame for this. They're the ones who raised her to be this way.
Am I the jerk for getting mad at my girlfriend for destroying my farm? Backstory. I, 22 male, and my girlfriend, 24 female, have been together for 6 years. We both like video games, but I play more than her for the following reasons. 1. She gets nauseous while playing games that have a lot of camera movement. 2. She doesn't have a lot of time. She works about 60 hours a week. 3. She doesn't purchase games. She has to help her family with bills. We've been wanting to play together for a long time, so I tried helping her. I gave her my Xbox a few years ago, and last year I bought her a laptop and shared my Steam account with her. But again, she hasn't been able to play because of the reasons mentioned earlier. Story. I bought a game called Stardew Valley for myself a couple years ago, but didn't make time to play it until I realized it had multiplayer in it, so I thought it was the perfect game for us, and it is. I told her about it, and she didn't think it was good because it didn't look as pretty as Animal Crossing. But as soon as we started playing, we fell in love with it. We play maybe once or twice every week for about 1 or 2 hours. I really like the game and wanted to play longer. So a couple of weeks ago, I told her that I was going to create a new save file so I could play by myself. And she said, "Sure, no problem. I'll do the same when I have time." So I did just that. I played on my new save file when I was alone and played with her on our shared save file when she was available. The issue began this week. She came to my house as I was playing and she saw that I was advancing really fast and I had a lot of things already. She got angry and I told her that it had nothing to do with our farm and that I still enjoyed playing with her and I thought that was it. Yesterday she was in my room and I went to the kitchen to make dinner. But when I came back to the room, I saw that she literally destroyed my farm. My crops were gone, my animals were gone, my buildings were destroyed, and I had no money, so a lot of hours getting those things were wasted. She had already saved, so I couldn't fix it. Of course, it's not the end of the world, but I was really upset, so I yelled at her. She screamed back, saying that I was supposed to play with her and that I left her behind. I told her that it was not a competition and that I was just enjoying the game. I wanted to play with her and play separately on my own farm. That is why I created 2 farms. I just gave her dinner and told her not to speak to me, and we went to sleep like that. Today, she apologized and told me that she wants to play, but I told her that I don't want to play with her anymore. Heck, I don't even want to play Stardew Valley anymore. Am I the jerk for getting mad and refusing to play with her anymore? I can understand her frustration because she doesn't have a lot of free time, but on the other hand, she destroyed something of mine just to hurt me. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his girlfriend? Please let us know.
If Reddit boy destroyed my farm on Stardew Valley, I'd be on the phone with a divorce lawyer immediately.
Karen tries to have me arrested for stopping her from shoplifting. I, 19 female, work at a large craft/retail store and it was almost closing time. I was at a register waiting for stragglers to check out and had my back towards the exit, which is right behind the registers. There was nobody coming up, so I was looking around and I noticed a woman walking quickly behind me towards the exit. By the time I saw her, she was already turning towards the doors and walking into the foyer which leads to the outside entrance, and I only saw her back and a little of her side. Enough, I noticed her arms were crossed over her chest like she was holding something against it. I didn't think much of it, just yelled, "Have a good night." I guess she was so focused on getting out of the store she didn't notice me standing there. So when I spoke to her, she startled really badly and dropped what she was holding. It was a little vase that cost like $10. So immediately, I walked towards her out into the foyer. I don't know why she stayed there. She could have just booked it and I wouldn't have followed her. And I asked her if she was planning to pay for the vase, kind of in a snarky way, but it was late and I was too tired for this BS. She got huffy and said yes, so I picked up the vase to bring it to my register and check her out. I don't know if that set her off or what, but she suddenly got really upset and snatched the vase away from me. She said,
"I paid for this,"
and then started talking some bull about my dirty paws being all over her property. I already knew what this was going to turn into, so I went to the registers and picked up a phone and paged for my manager. A couple of my coworkers came up to the registers and she started talking to them about how I had tried to steal her property and accused her of shoplifting and yelled at her. They all knew she was lying already because I'm a very quiet, shy person and I've never raised my voice, let alone yelled at someone at work. The lady started telling my coworkers to call the cops and also started saying that I had physically cornered her and that she was afraid for her life. Now this woman was tall and pretty broad, and I'm average height/thin, so she's a good 5 to 6 inches taller than me and much bigger, besides height. There's no way I could have intimidated her that much. My coworkers and I just let her carry on until my manager got there, and it turned out that he had been suspicious of her earlier and had been checking the cameras. When she tried to start her BS on him about having me arrested and stuff, he already knew she didn't pay for anything and told her to leave and stop harassing his employees. She told him that she would be calling corporate. He said go ahead, and she stormed out after that. The kicker of this whole thing was that she was wearing what seemed like expensive clothes and nice jewelry, and when we watched her leave, it was in a car that looked pretty new and expensive. And she was trying to steal and make a big fuss over a little $10 vase when she obviously has the money to afford many of them. I hate customers like this. Am I the jerk for walking out during a dinner with my boyfriend's family? Due to my religion, I'm Indian living in America. I, female 21, don't eat beef. I only eat chicken because I've never liked any other meats. I can't stand to see someone eat beef, so I never put myself in a situation where I have to witness that. My boyfriend, male 22, is very nice about this and restrains from eating beef when I'm around. His sister, female 25, came to surprise visit a couple months back and wanted to go out for a steak dinner. My boyfriend refused because I was over at his house. I had suggested they both go and I can order myself a pizza. My boyfriend didn't want to go without me since we only get to spend around 2 days a week with each other. We ended up going to Burger King and his sister was mad at me because she thought I was trying to turn him vegan or something. Cue to a couple of days back, my boyfriend's mom invited us to dinner so he could introduce me to his family. His sister was also in town. My boyfriend told his mom to make a chicken and she agreed. I was very nervous to meet his family, and because I have horrible anxiety, I don't like talking to strangers, and it takes me a while to get comfortable around new people. It was a little awkward at the beginning since I would only answer questions his parents asked me, and after some jokes and teasing, I finally felt comfortable. When we all sat down to have dinner, his mom brought out my plate first, mentioning I was the only one eating chicken. I was confused about this since I thought she would be cooking chicken for everyone. The dish looks like one of those ready-to-eat microwave meals, but I didn't care because I didn't expect his mom to cook 2 separate meals. She brings out everyone else's plates, and it turns out my boyfriend's sister had asked her to make braised beef. I didn't want to be rude, but at the same time, I didn't want to sit there and watch them eat beef. So I politely excused myself from the table and went to sit in the living room with my plate. My boyfriend came out to talk to me, and I was trying to tell him that it's fine. Everyone can have dinner, and then we can continue to talk afterwards. His sister comes storming out of the dining room, fuming about how I ruined such a nice dinner, and I was being the jerk for not letting her brother eat his food. Which, by the way, I never said he couldn't eat his dinner. She called me a bunch of names and basically said I insulted her parents by walking out from the dinner table, and that her brother deserved to be with someone that let him eat whatever he wanted to. She ended her rant by saying to my boyfriend, "You should have known better than to date her." I was practically crying at this point because I felt responsible for ruining their dinner. My boyfriend told his sister off, and we left. His parents never even came out of the dining room to say goodbye. Edit 1. To everyone asking why I can't watch people eat beef, it's because the smell is very off-putting to me. So as long as I'm not in super close proximity with someone eating beef, I'm okay. I only moved to the States about 3 years back, half of which was spent in lockdown, so I haven't had to deal with many situations like this. I'm trying to get used to it to avoid anything in the future. Edit. I mustered up the courage to call his mom and apologized. I told her it was rude of me to walk away after explaining why I couldn't stand the smell, and said sorry that she had to cook 2 meals. She was very nice about it. Mentioned that she only cooked the beef and brought a microwave chicken dinner because she didn't have the time to cook 2 meals. His mom also apologized for making beef. Turns out my boyfriend had told her to cook chicken because I couldn't eat beef due to my religious beliefs, so she was planning on cooking chicken for everyone, but his sister asked for beef. I've been invited to dinner again, and this time we will all be eating chicken and boyfriend's sister won't be there. Edit 3. To everyone asking why I can stand the Burger King smell, it's because it smells like grease to me, not beef. The Burger King I go to smells like smoke and grease, and not of any particular meat. Entitled Mom dislikes my signature, demands I change it. I'm a high school principal, and for better or worse, that means signing a lot of documents. I mean a lot. Report cards, IEPs, reports, requests, diplomas, the list is endless. Over the years, I have developed a signature that is easy to write, distinctive, and kind of hard to read. In other words, it's a scrawl. Well, recently I sent home registration papers to a new parent whose teenager will be entering the school in September. They included a cover letter signed by me. The next day, there was a message on our school's voicemail from the parent, entitled Mom.
Hi, I just received the registration package from the school and I had a question about the letter that came with it. It says it's from the principal, but I can't read his signature.
Now, note that under my signature is my name and title printed proudly in 12-point Times New Roman, entitled Mom.
Can someone get back to me about this?
My secretary called back and entitled Mom demanded to speak to me personally. Me. Hi there, Brother B speaking. How can I help you?
I received your letter with the registration package. I was a little confused because I couldn't read your signature.
Me. Confused? How? It was from me.
I know, but I couldn't read your signature. So?
Me. Quietly reflecting. Karen.
You know, I don't want to make a big deal of it, but I don't think it's okay to have the signature people can't read.
Me. I'm not sure I understand your concern. The letter is from me on school letterhead with my name and title clearly displayed. She interrupts me.
But I can't read the signature. I think it needs to be clearer so that, you know, people can read it.
Me. Thoughtfully silent.
I think you need to change it.
Okay. Well, thanks for calling. If you're having any difficulty with the registration papers themselves, you can talk to our guidance secretary.
Are you going to fix it?
Me. Fix it? My signature?
I think you need to change it.
Me. Thanks. If you need assistance, I'll pass your call to guidance. Bye now. I hung up. A little while later, I received an email from entitled Mom with suggested examples of what she wanted my signature to be. I thoughtfully deleted it. I guess I'm the nastiest person ever. A woman and her husband came in for Father's Day, started giving the hostess a hard time about wanting a four-top for the two of them, started threatening to leave, says they were promised by the owner. I go over and tell them I can give them a big table for the next hour if they really want it. Okay, great. They're so happy about it. They start asking about things that aren't on the specials, have to explain why we can't. Help them order something else. Cool. I take their order. Husband orders the steak, medium, and tells me they can't eat carbs, so he wants vegetables instead of fries. The woman orders the chicken. They ate 2 baskets of bread. The food comes out and they seem happy. The guy almost ate the whole steak, and the woman seemed to really be enjoying her meal. My busser comes over to me and says when she asked if they were still working on their plates, they seemed upset and said,
"No, you can't take our plates."
Later on, I see the guy moved over to another seat at the table, away from his food. I go over and ask if they're still enjoying their meal. Lady.
"No, I'm not enjoying my meal. You never asked my husband what temperature he wanted his steak."
Me. Oh, he told me medium when he ordered. And she goes,
"No, he didn't. You never asked."
I pull out my notepad and show her the order I wrote down. Says medium. Lady.
"No, and also I have felt so rushed. You've been rushing us this whole time."
Me. Ma'am, I apologize, but I did tell you that this table is only available for an hour. She starts yelling that she wants the owner, but the owner is the chef, so he's behind the line during a busy dinner. I tell her that he'll be over as soon as he can. Time passes and she won't get up. It's been an hour since they sat. Owner/chef goes over. She starts saying that he broke his promise to her and that I've given her the worst service of her life, etc. Owner comes over, says to remove their drinks from the check and to give it to them. So I do, and the lady tells me to pack the little bite of steak left because she's going to give it to her dogs. Lady.
"You never even asked us if we wanted desserts. You know I have the same job as you, and I've never treated anyone as horrible as you've treated us tonight."
At that point, I was so upset. So I said, "Oh, really? Where do you work?" And she goes,
"Excuse me? That's none of your business."
And I say to her, "Okay, I just wanted to know, so I never go there." I walked away. A little while later, she's walking out and says to the hostess,
That waitress is the nastiest person I've ever met in my life.
It was pretty stressful. Went to the break room and cried for a second. Oh, and the tip line on the check was scratched out to the point where the receipt was about to rip. Am I the jerk for telling my brother I'm not his mom when he asked me for financial help? I, 30 female, have a brother, 24 male. Our parents were not good parents. They had kids they couldn't afford, couldn't parent, and because I was the girl and the firstborn, I was put in charge of my brother more times than I could count. I was also made to bear financial responsibilities once I started doing odd jobs for money or working part-time after school. Literally, once my parents found out, they sent my brother to me for food, clothes, activities, and my dad even quit his job, so I was the breadwinner on a very small amount of money. I ended up cutting all 3 of them off a decade ago. I couldn't with my brother. He told me it was my job to look after him, that I was the oldest and he deserved to have someone look after him, and I was being selfish not wanting to do it. I told him it should never have been my job. He was clear he did not care. I've not had any contact with him since, until recently he reached out, told me he had a kid and his girlfriend was pregnant and they were struggling and wanted money for a surgery and wanted money to help feed their kid. There was no hi or asking how I was, saying anything that showed he was doing anything but trying to get money. I told him no. He said it was my responsibility and I should think of his kids and prevent them from having the same life we did. I snapped, told him to leave me alone, that I'm not his mom and I will not support him for the rest of my life, that if he wants better for his kids, he can do what I had to. Okay, I was alone because nobody supported me. Nobody gave a hoot about what I needed, that he's a grown man now and needs to take responsibility. He called me all sorts of names. I was around my husband's family when he sent the message. They asked, and they all thought I was very harsh and that he was kind of right about me being a jerk when there are kids involved, and it's how he was raised. It makes me mad, because why don't I just use that excuse to leech off people then? Why am I doing the best for my family, my kids, but it's okay for him not to? But they planted seeds of doubt. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her brother? Please let us know.
Nothing's worse than leeches. Always cut them out of your life.
My wife tricks me into thinking she's pregnant. My wife, female 26, and I, male 30, decided to start having kids. We've been trying for over 9 months and nothing happened. We were told to be patient, but I couldn't help but keep stressing out about a problem that's preventing us from conceiving. The issue is that my wife kept joking about this matter and pranked me twice by lying to me, saying that she was pregnant. The first was when I was at work, and she sent a text telling me that she was pregnant. I was so happy. I came home and brought stuff with me to celebrate, only to find her laughing in my face, saying it was a prank. Second time was when she told me she was pregnant and was recording my reaction during and after the prank. Again, laughing, telling me it was a prank, but this time she shared the video with her family. I told her I didn't appreciate how she laughs about a serious matter, then having me believe it was true only to ruin my happiness. She stopped for 2 months. Last night we were at my parents' house sitting having dinner when she said she had a gift for me. She had my sister go bring a small teddy bear with a note on it and gave it to me. I was nervous and worried about her pulling some of her pranks on me in front of my family. I read the note that the teddy bear had, and it said that I was going to be a daddy. I looked at my wife, and she smiled at me and congratulated me, saying she was pregnant. I saw red completely. I said, "That's it." I got up from my seat and tossed the piece of paper on the table and just snapped, telling her to stop making fun of something so serious and sensitive. I told her I was done with her lack of respect and sympathy for the most important thing that I've been struggling with, and to include my parents in her prank too was low. My wife excused herself to the bathroom. My mom and dad were unaware of what was happening. They literally paused and asked what the heck was wrong with me. My sister said my wife was actually pregnant and just confirmed by tests that she's seen with her own eyes. I felt both happy and devastated because I thought she was pulling the same prank again, and I got fed up with it. My wife was mad and argued with me in the car, saying that I ruined her joy and made her look awful in front of my family, as well as lashing out at her as my reaction to the happy news. She said she told me in front of my parents to show me she was serious this time. She had her mom call to berate me, and say that her poor daughter will suffer with my boorish behavior and my lack of respect for her. My wife has been giving me the cold shoulder ever since. Am I the jerk? She told me I ruined the moment she's been waiting for so long, and that she'll remember my reaction for the rest of her life. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or his wife? Please let us know.
This reminds me of the boy who cried wolf. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
New rules for parts in the office cost a sales guy his bonus. I work in launch quality for a mid-sized manufacturing company in the States. My team is basically the last step before a new product can get okayed to sell, as we do all the final checks, customer documents, and regulatory sign-offs. Our last manager left just when lockdown hit, as he was near 70 and decided to just retire. It took the company till October to decide to hire a new one. During this time, the salespeople stopped coming in, and because my team were some of the few office folks coming in, because we have to check the parts, they started shipping everything to us. Samples, prototypes, final launch parts, paperwork, you name it. Even better, they rarely picked everything up. They may take 5 to 10 or a 25-part run and left us with the mess. A year of this, and the office was a wreck, and they didn't care as none of the mess affected their bonuses, so as long as those parts got to the customer on time. New boss comes in, and he's one of the 2 managers on site, him and the production manager. Because of how the factory is laid out, our team are the only ones in the office, and so that's where he is. He questions the mess, but we say no one has cared about our concerns, so he shrugs it off. Now our boss has his faults. He's pretty tone-deaf on the resources and time it takes to finish things sometimes because of the industry he came from, heavy automotive. His attitude is, if it takes us all 60 hours a week for the next months, we work it. The other side of that is he's here with us. He'll occasionally just tell someone their assignment is to not be there for a couple of days if things are slow, and he has our backs. Malicious compliance. About 3 months ago, the company president comes in for the first time in a year. He's upset about the state of the office. As our boss is the only manager around, he goes off on him for the state of things, despite new boss only being there about 6 months and all this predating him. Tells him to just figure it out, but I want this office clean and professional. Boss comes to me and says, write me a policy and process for shipping material to the office, storage, and disposal of things that sit. Have the draft by the end of the week, and I'll get you a budget and some factory folks if you need to buy anything, move, or install anything. So I write one that's pretty easy and straightforward. Basically, what we had already been doing, but more organized. Shelves, ID locations, incoming and outgoing. Boss looks at it and makes 2 comments. We're not inventory clerks. Sales gets the ID of the shipment, and unless they get my or the production manager's approval, it's their problem. 2. We don't have that much space. Add a clause, we will throw out anything over a week old every Friday. Then he got me 2 maintenance people and told purchasing I had some orders to put in. Then he sent the policy to the president. President said to do it. 3 weeks later, the office is pristine. President has his chest puffed out next time he comes through. Then, last month, it happens. We all knew sales wasn't going to pay attention to our policy, even though my boss personally met with the sales VP and the team leads. For the most part, nothing we threw out was a big deal. But then, one of the team leads ships a whole prototype order to the office. I know the guy is infamous for getting other people to do his work and never follows up with anything. And if things go wrong, he throws us or production under the bus. Now, this order is a big deal. High 6-figure contract with our number 3 customer. Part of a new line that could generate millions. I tell boss, and he shrugs and says I should email the guy to remind him of his parts and the new policy. No response. Friday cleanup comes and boss calls this guy on his cell. Voicemail. So boss puts the parts on his desk and has me send a reminder to the guy. Nothing. Monday rolls around and still no follow-up. So boss reply alls my emails with his boss, sales VP, and president on it, saying his policy that the guy had till 10 on Tuesday when trash people pick up our roll-off to get his parts. Tuesday rolls around and he has me toss the parts and email the sales guy that I did. Things blew up on Wednesday. Sales guy calls me screaming at me for losing the parts and there's no way to make new ones in time. Who the heck am I to toss his parts, etc.? Boss sees my face and can probably hear the screaming from his office and comes out to see what's going on. I managed to stammer something out and then got another earful from the sales guy. Boss takes the receiver from my hand and I will never forget this. "You will never speak to my people like that again. I am hanging up now. The next call you get will be from VP Ops for a meeting time to discuss this incident. We will also discuss your unprofessional language to OP." He hangs up as the next tirade starts and tells me to ignore the guy's next call. Reminds me that we have a big due date upcoming and hands me his credit card so I can order the team dinner and heads back to his office. About 4 o'clock, he closes his door, which he only does for conference calls and HR stuff. My whole team can hear the yelling through the door, but not much detail. Around 5:25, HR sends out an email with times for mandatory training on following company policy and another for proper workplace decorum. Boss comes out about 6 o'clock looking mostly tired and remarks, "I will never understand why people want to mess with the folks who make them money and write the rules. Oh, your work assignment for Friday is to be off." Then he just heads back to his office to finish our project. P.S. I never did get an apology from the sales guy, but he's been way nicer. I know the contract miss cost him his bonus. It was his only one that quarter. I think my boss took some crap assignments for the next couple of weeks, but neither me nor my team has heard anything about it. Security gets fired on his day off, justifiably. This evening has been one to remember. We have a security guy who likes to come in on his days off and drink in the bar. The problem arises when the guy seems to think he's a security guard when he's off the clock. He likes to jump into arguments and thinks he's helping. The reality is that every time he does this, he escalates the situation and makes everything worse. Tonight was the night he went beyond too far and hit this stupid stratosphere. Here's the situation. A female customer had had too much to drink and the bartender cut her off. She got into an argument with another person. The bartender manages to calm her down, has her outside waiting for a cab. Cue off-duty security guard. He runs up yelling and insulting her, telling her to get off the property and just in general being a tool. She gets riled up again and starts arguing and yelling at the tool bag, as I shall be calling him from here on. Bartender pulls the tool bag to the side and says, "Hey man, I got this. Why don't you go back inside and chill out, man? Have a drink and relax. This is taken care of." Tool bag looks at the bartender and starts yelling at him, telling him to mind his own business and to shut up. Bartender is still trying to be reasonable, and here is when tool bag goes too far, in front of the head of security. He calls the bartender a name he has no business calling anyone. Head of security steps in right then and there and says, "You can leave now. Don't bother coming back either. You're fired. I'm not having a giant piece of crap running their mouth and starting crap here. You don't work here anymore." The bartender is understandably hurt and angry, so I take the bartender aside and I just let him scream and yell. I told him to get it off his chest. I tell him that everyone here tonight has his back, that no one is going to put up with this kind of crap. I give him a smoke and let him talk. Sometimes venting is all you can do for someone. I don't know if it helped. It makes me wish that people weren't such idiots. My question now is there anything else I could have done for the bartender? I honestly don't know. This isn't even an area that I have much experience in. Entitled Mom flags me down at my apartment complex for trespassing. My girlfriend and I recently moved into a new apartment in one of the better neighborhoods in my country. We have an abandoned house out back owned by the landlord's brother, and the house has a dock that the tenants of my apartment complex are able to use whenever. So we've had a couple of run-ins with random people at this point. My friends have been waiting in their car for me and have been approached by this one entitled mom, asking them what they're doing here, and that this is private property, and if they don't move, she's going to call the police. For context, she does not live in this area, and it's private property, but more on that later. I walk outside while they're talking and call them into my apartment without even acknowledging the entitled mom's existence. Nothing else came of that, but just to preface this next bit, I felt that first encounter was important. That happened a few months ago, and today, just 20 minutes ago now, I run into this woman again. I had a rundown car that we just got rid of, so I have a new one that people in the area won't recognize as mine yet. So I drive home and see entitled mom and her 2 kids. I like to go down to the dock from time to time to relax and smoke, so I park my car in my spot and walk towards the dock. Entitled mom sees me and meets me halfway.
Excuse me? What are you doing here? Don't you know this is private property? You can't be here.
I live here, and the apartment's right behind me.
No, you don't. I know everyone who lives there.
Okay, well, I moved in 6 months ago, and I know for a fact you don't live here, so may I ask what you're doing here? She tells me she knows the owner and she has a right to be there, and again assures me that she knows I don't live here. So I just say, okay, whatever you say, and walk back to my place. She follows me, and as I walk up my steps,
Excuse me? Why are you not getting in your car? Should I call the police?
I ignore her and go to open my back door. Forgetting I had locked the deadbolt, I say, darn, I forgot to, and she cuts me off from walking around the front.
I just witnessed you trying to break into a house. I'm calling the police.
At this point, I'm annoyed because I just want to go smoke and relax. I tell her to knock herself out. She calls, and me being the annoyed petty person I am, stands there the whole time, and I waited patiently for them to arrive. They show up and ask what's wrong. She explains how I came to a private property and tried to use her dog, and then tried to break into someone's home. I tell the one that's talking to me to follow me around the front so I can unlock the door to show her that I live here. As we walk, I hear the entitled mom shouting about me being a thief, and why haven't I been handcuffed already? We walk around the front and I unlock the door. It's a straight walk from my front to back door, so I walk through and show the officer I do in fact live here. I open the deadbolt and slowly open the door with the biggest grin on my face as the entitled mom just stares and goes red. She shouts at the officer that I must have done something to get in. The officer laughs her off and talks to his partner. After a few minutes, they tell her to go back to what she was doing, as I obviously should be here. I point out in this moment that entitled mom doesn't live here, and the only places besides my complex is abandoned, and I know who the owner is. Her and the officers walk back to her car by the dock steps about 50 feet away. I can't hear anything, obviously, so bummer there. After about 10 minutes, the cops leave, and a few minutes after that, I hear a car speeding down the road and a loud,
Forget you!
as it goes past. Sorry if it's not a great ending, as I don't know what the cops talked about, but if it happens again, people who don't live here go to the dock all the time, I'll be sure to update. Am I the jerk for dissing my husband's medical condition? My husband has a medical condition which is incurable, and his symptoms are many. I've always been supportive throughout his journey. Part of his condition means that he has severe daily bathroom trips, and his skin on his hands and feet are extremely dry and crackly. He also has bladder issues. I have always tried to be supportive. When he's insecure about the bathroom, I always act as if I can't smell anything, when really, most days I'll have to hold my breath when I go in. If he's worried about it, I always assure him that he smells fine. I shave off his dead skin weekly to the point where I'm covered in powdered dead skin and will need to have a shower. I do this all without complaint. My husband is also a complete neat freak. Now, whilst I do all the cooking in the house, I'm terrible at cleaning. It's not something I enjoy doing, and I'm always lazy when it comes to it. I'm not the most dirtiest person in the world to live with either. I wash the dishes, do the laundry, and clean the bathroom as often as I can, but there are days when I just can't be bothered, so I'll leave it. Now the problem. My husband gets super annoyed when things are not tidy. We've had arguments before where he's called me names, says that I'm disgusting to live with, and has said I'm gross for leaving the dishes in the sink without cleaning up after myself. Because of these comments, I've become super insecure. I spoke to him about it before and told him his comments have made me feel uncomfortable living in my own home. He says he doesn't mean it and just says it to hurt my feelings during the argument, but he doesn't actually mean it. Recently, my husband was tidying and I was trying to talk to him about something that happened during the day. He kept cutting me off mid-sentence, saying things like, "Put your mug away," "Put the mop back where you found it," etc., which I found rude. I told him to let me finish talking and to stop interrupting. He replied back, "Fine." And then when I finished saying what I had to say, he just went silent and had nothing to say back. I was annoyed. I hoovered early that day, and I left the Hoover out without putting it back into the closet. He asked me to put it back, and I said, "Why can't you do it?" He got mad and suddenly started arguing with me, calling me gross to live with, and he knew I was already insecure about that. I lost it. I replied saying, "You know what's gross? The smell you leave in the bathroom each time you use it. It's disgusting." He sat there in horror and said, "I can't believe you used my medical condition against me in an argument." I replied, "Don't think you can disrespect me and I will just sit there like a lame duck. Don't think you can use my insecurities against me and I won't use yours." He sat there and cried all night. We haven't spoken since. Am I the jerk? Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know.
Don't dish it out if you can't take it back.
Entitled Mom Critiques My Daughter's Painting. Hey guys, I'm 33, female, married, and we have 2 kids, a 13-year-old son and a 9-year-old daughter. The entitled mom is my sister-in-law in this story. Sister-in-law recently moved in our area with her husband and 2-year-old boy. I know her husband pretty well. He's my husband's brother. I've never had anything against him. I've never really met her, but heard some horror stories. Decided to try not to judge someone I didn't even know from someone else. I was wrong. She was everything they said she was. Insanely clingy, lazy, and entitled. My husband and I invited them over for dinner one night. Everything was going fine. Well, my daughter heard about how sister-in-law paints and wanted to show her her artwork. My daughter showed her a painting she did of a lizard in the desert. It's not museum quality, but I think she did a good job. Sister-in-law grinned her teeth and said nice. Later, when my daughter was getting ready for bed, sister-in-law and brother-in-law were looking at the painting and making fun of it. I told them, "Yeah, it's not the greatest, but she did her best and it shows." This is me trying to not start something with a new family member I just met. She said,
"Yeah, but oh my god, look at it. Look at the proportions. Sorry, I went to an art college and I just can't help but see all of the flaws with this."
She dropped out of art college because it was too hard and too demanding. I looked at brother-in-law and he said, "Sorry, but come on." I kept my mouth shut and waited till after they left to tell my husband. He brushed it off and said our daughter shouldn't show her artwork anymore. I just told my daughter, sister-in-law has a hard time seeing the beauty in things sometimes, and maybe it's best to not show her. She understood, and we continued to paint projects together. Edit. Wow. Thank you guys. You all are amazing. I think I need to clarify some things because I'm seeing a lot of this. My daughter never heard sister-in-law and brother-in-law say those things. She was upstairs while they were downstairs. I only told my daughter not to show her paintings to sister-in-law again because I don't trust sister-in-law to be kind to my daughter after that. Yeah, my husband should have said something to them. I asked him about it, and he said he doesn't give 2 craps about stupid people's opinions. He honestly likes his daughter's painting. It makes him happy every time he sees it. Hope this clears up some things. Let me know if there's anything else. Regulars tear up a store over a TV remote. I work at a convenience store type place. We have a small spot where customers can drink, and there's a TV there. 9 out of 10 of the people who hang out in there are generally regulars, folks who go in every day for the last 3 or 4 hours we're open. They're very obsessive with the TV. Well, Friday, the remote got stolen. Friday night, they come in, and I tell them the remote is gone. TV's not even on because I turned it off since the remote got snatched. Had to stand on a darn counter just to reach the buttons. Clearly, they didn't believe me because every one of them came up to me separately asking for the remote. It's gone. It's stolen. I can't just magically make up a new remote. Saturday, they were upset because I'm lying and just hiding the remote from them because I don't want the TV on, and I frequently shut it off on them anyways. I only have it shut off at night when I've got people coming in to watch TV, but they aren't buying anything. So they clearly did the logical thing to solve this problem. They started searching the store. They went into the kitchen. They went behind the counter for that room, where we keep single beers and important stuff. They went into the dry storage area. They went into the manager's office and rummaged through her stuff to find the remote. They ignored me when I said they couldn't be back there because I'm hiding the remote from them. Of course, they were allowed to go into those places. They spent more time in the store than some of the employees, so they get to do what they want, right? Plus, the owner loves them. She wouldn't mind them searching her office. I went into their drinking room and announced to all of the customers that anyone who goes into the employee areas will be asked to leave the store immediately. Got a few arguments, and then I added I will contact the police if an individual refuses to leave. That got them to stop. I don't think they understood the remote was gone until yesterday when I had to scold a few of them for doing that on my coworker's shift a couple days later and reminded them that they not only can get kicked out, but banned if they keep doing that. These were multiple full-grown 30-year-old adults. You can call managers to counter-complain in line at Costco gas. The lines are nuts because gas prices are nuts, and Costco gas is cheap and convenient. Everyone is on edge. The Costco gas employees have to periodically sweep the lanes and clean up spilled gas. Just like at the registers, when they close a line, they stop people from lining up in that line. They finish the people currently in the queue and direct other customers into different lanes so that they can come off the lane and sweep. I'm pumping gas and see this go down. A woman drives around the cone and into the lane they're sweeping like she's exempt from the process and is going to get gas. Employee guy jogs over and tells her in a normal tone, "Sorry ma'am, this lane is closed for the moment. Can you please pull around into a different lane?" She says, "Why?" He says, "This lane is closed." Sees an empty spot not yet filled in the adjacent lane. "You can go there," and points. She starts screeching,
You don't have to talk to me that way. I don't appreciate.
A guy gets out of the passenger seat. Employee guy is babbling and pointing and waving, points at cones, empty lane, broom. Screeching lady turns into a yelling lady and says all sorts of mean things to him. Employee is looking around because he's in over his head. Yelling lady starts with the,
Your manager is going to hear about this. You just lost your job.
gets in her car and peels out leaving. I finish pumping and go find a place to park. I Google the store phone number and call. I hit the number to speak with a manager. I ask for the manager in charge of the gas station. "Sorry, he's gone for the day. Can I leave a message?" Okay. Can I tell you then? I just saw this whole thing go down. In a minute, you're going to get a call from a lady claiming she was just disrespected by a gas employee and complaining a storm. Let me tell you what actually happened from an objective observer because there's no way this guy did anything wrong. And it's going to come down to his word versus crazy lady. Okay, thank you for the heads up. It's nice to hear he was doing the right thing. And oh, actually, your lady is on the phone with this other manager right here, it sounds like, and I'll pass along your message. Thanks for calling. Stand up for injustice. Entitled mom tells her kid, "You ruin every family outing at a pumpkin patch. It's now a family tradition to say this to each other." Okay, so I come from a large family, and one of the things we enjoy is getting together to take the kids to the pumpkin patch, and then meeting up at my big sister's house for a stew, carving, and dessert. We've missed doing this the past 2 years, but that's another story. This happened, and I want to say about 2012-ish. My family had all met up at one of our local pumpkin patches, and we were standing in line for kettle corn, hot dogs, hot chocolate, and caramel apples. You know, pumpkin patch snacks. Most of us had already finished with finding our pumpkins and decided to grab snacks before getting lost in the corn maze. While we're standing there, we hear this lady, entitled Mom, saying things very loudly.
You are unbelievable. Knock it off,
etc. We're all just kind of looking at each other like, uh-oh, someone's in trouble, but we don't see where it's coming from right away. I then look over and see my best friend, we'll call her Amy, with her daughter, we'll call her Heather, who was about 10 at the time, in tow, kind of rushing towards us with this crazy look of, what the heck, on their faces. I notice she doesn't have their pumpkins yet. Me, aw, couldn't find any good ones? Amy, OMG, no, we stopped looking because it was getting crazy over there. Me, huh? What do you mean? Heather, looking at Amy, says softly, Mom, can we maybe get pumpkins later? You know, like after they leave? They was whispered, even more followed by her giving a quick glance back to the area they had just left. Amy to her daughter, sure, sweetie. Then she looks at me and says in a hushed tone, there's some lady over there yelling at her kid. I think it's her daughter, but the girl is just crying that she wants some other pumpkin her dad got. Amy then continued to tell me that this girl can't be more than 5 years old, and she just keeps saying, no, I want daddy's pumpkin, to the entitled mom, but entitled mom is not having it. Apparently, the kid was firm and kind of soft-spoken at first, and then the mom seemed like she was trying to hush the situation, but when the girl wouldn't give in, Entitled Mom lost it and started yelling things like,
Knock it off. Just quit already.
both Amy and Heather were standing fairly close to them, and when Entitled Mom lost it, it made Heather jump and rush to Amy for protection. Amy told Heather, let's go find Haunted Dreamer 78 and see if she wants to help us pick one out. Heather agreed and they rushed over to me. I looked down at Heather and asked if she wanted to do the corn maze first and then we could get her a pumpkin. She was happy about that. Then I asked if she wanted a hot chocolate and started asking her if she wanted to go stand with my mom and my little brothers so she didn't get bored standing in line when we heard Entitled Mom start yelling again. This time she was marching past us, dragging her kid by the arm. No, not literally dragging. We would have stopped them if we had seen that. So she's pulling her daughter out of the pumpkin patch and heading towards the exit and parking lot. All the while she's making these loud grunting exasperation noises, and my whole family is watching on, trying to figure out what's happening. To be honest, everyone at the patch within earshot of this lady is watching. Then it happens. She pauses slightly in her grunting rampage towards the exit long enough to look at this 5-year-old and says,
You ruin every family outing.
and then continues towards the exit. We all just look at each other in shock. And then something else, perfect timing, happens. My son, 12 years old at the time, wasn't looking where he was going because he was distracted by the Entitled Mom as well. He trips slightly on a hay bale and drops his hot chocolate on the ground. I looked at him and with a huge smile on my face yell, in the most obnoxious Entitled Mom voice I can muster,
OMG, you ruin every family outing.
All I could hear was laughter. I looked over at Entitled Mom and she was frozen in place for a minute before turning red and running out to the parking lot. No one clapped. It was just funny to those who witnessed her behavior. And yes, my son laughed too. He knew I wasn't serious. So now it's a family tradition to use this phrase anytime our family is together and something happens. My sister burnt the stew one year. I forgot a Christmas gift at home once. My son tripped and knocked a gaming system over, turning it off. Pretty much anything going wrong anytime gets this phrase. It just never gets old. Edit. My significant other just reminded me that both he and his brother were saying this to each other very loudly for the rest of the day at the pumpkin patch. Entitled Mom was in earshot for at least one of these.
Do this next. Tap here on your screen to come see our new podcast playlist, where you'll find thousands of hours of the best stories you've ever heard. Or tap the one on the right. That episode is specifically just for you, based on other videos you've enjoyed the most.